Okay, the time is now 6:35. The date is Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. Commissioner Payne is absent. Take a roll call to open the meeting. Jim Franklin's here. Megan?
Here.
Kalina?
Here.
Dot?
Here.
Marilyn?
Here.
Please note that we are doing a hybrid meeting with in-person and virtual attendance. If a member of the virtual public would like to make comment during the public hearing, please use the raise a hand function on Zoom, and you will be assigned speaking time. If you are listening in via telephone dial-in, press *9 to raise your hand, and then press *6 to unmute yourself. This meeting is being recorded by the local scene, and a record of this meeting will be posted as soon as they are able. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should be notified the chair at this time. Hearing none. Announcement. Kingston Conservation Commission is seeking a new member. Commissioners are responsible for protecting the town's natural resources, including through enforcement of state and local wetland protection laws. Those interested should reach out to the Conservation Department by calling 781-585-0537 or emailing Matt Pinella at mpenella@kingstonma.gov. Matt, you got signing documents you want to brief us on?
Yes, we have bills for Apex for year 8 MS4 support, WB Mason for office supplies, and we have the denial order of conditions for Baker Ave as voted at the last meeting.
Okay.
We have 2 other bills. Strong Tree Engineering for Lake Street culvert bid prep, and a reimbursement to me for shipping costs.
Okay. Any questions? Action items. We'll move on to a public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability for 53R Main Street, submitted by Green Seal Environmental LLC on behalf of the applicant 53R Main Street Realty LLC for stormwater improvements, vegetation restoration and plantings, removal of old fence posts and debris, and installation of wood fence within the 100-foot buffer zone to an inland wetland resource area. Matt is the applicant here.
Yes.
All right.
I might have a representative online too.
All right, where this is the first meeting, we'll hear an introduction from the applicant. Sorry, I was looking at it.
Sorry, I thought it was on.
Ma'am, before we start, did you sign in?
I did.
All right, for the record.
Laura Gay with Green Seal Environmental.
Perfect.
So, as you described, we're here tonight for an RDA.
Jim,
your
microphone.
Is there a button on the microphone with a green light?
There is now.
There you go.
It does. I'm the first up, so I need to turn it on, right?
Yeah, well, apparently.
So as you described, we're here for the RDA for 53R. Your agent, Mr. Pinella, put in a good description of kind of the history of the property. They were issued a notice of violation earlier this year, which was then dismissed because of the statute of repose. There was, I think, some neighbor disputes happening, and went out to the site and noticed that there was some additional pavement on the property that was previously unpermitted. We think, looking at aerials, that probably happened probably 2009, maybe 2011, so kind of a long time ago. So since that notice of violation was dismissed, the applicant still, they acknowledge where they are in terms and in regards to the resource area that's off their property, and would like to do something to improve existing conditions out there, improve some stormwater conditions from that pavement, and do some buffer zone restoration with some plantings, and also putting in a fence along the property line, which was kind of discovered where it was through this process. And so, as we all know, good fences make great neighbors. So basically what we're looking to do is put in some infiltration trenches along the down gradient end of the pavement, which is where most of the water funnels to. That would reduce sediment loading, it would infiltrate, it would attenuate some of the stormwater. We're proposing some plantings along the property line, which are shown on the plans. They were chosen, appropriate for like rain garden applications, so I think it would be appropriate for where they're proposed on the plan. There's some area of grass that has been maintained as grass for, I think the history of the property, that has been, there's some gravel in there it's not in good condition, it's not stabilized, that's in the buffer zone, so we'd like to clean that up, replant some grass that will restabilize that area. And then there is also a small area, about 280 square feet, that was grass prior, that is located at the very edge of the 100-foot buffer zone, that the applicant has removed the grass and has put in crushed stone. So we've included that in this application to cover that activity that is in the buffer zone. So that is the gist of the project. The one other thing, when Matt was out on site, he noticed there are 3 large metal posts that are along the property line that's in close proximity to the wetland line. They're pretty old, they've been there a long time. We're also proposing to remove those as recommended by your agent.
Okay. We'll hear from Matt now. We might have some questions. You can remain at the podium, but
Sure.
if you have something you'd like to say, just ask to be recognized.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
Matt?
And if anybody wants this up on the screen, I can pull up the plan.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay. There it is. So you have Main Street over here to the left. You have the paved area along here, and these are all in, sort of in bold print is the proposed conditions. So here you have the topsoil and grass restoration after removing the plowing debris. Over here, this is the outer extent where the grass will be removed, replaced with crushed stone. You have the wetland border right here, and you have the plantings essentially right up against that with the fence along the property line, also pretty close to the wetlands. I believe this fence was proposed with the spacing for wildlife passage, and this is the sort of stormwater component of it, which is the trench with the perforated pipe. So I guess I'm not going to read through every bit of the staff report for time purposes, but I think one of the bigger things on this, we talked about the statute of repose and the dismissed enforcement issue. I think it's important to point out that what was filed was not attempting to permit that pavement in retro. So there's potentially still an enforcement issue here that if the commission wanted to enforce it on the next owner of the property, they could. So part of why I shared this staff report was wanted to make sure that the applicant was aware of that, unless the commission feels going forward like it's not something that they think is concerning, then I think that if somebody is, because we have had several people come in with interest in the property, and I feel like I'm supposed to tell them about this so that they're aware of it. So if that's something that the applicant was looking to do, is get this pavement permitted in retro, we would need to see a modified filing for that. Having said that, I don't know that it would be likely based on the impervious surface percentage. I think it was around 40% in jurisdiction with the pavement as is. So it's likely that you would either need substantial mitigation or removal of some of that pavement with additional, stormwater management in order to get that legally permitted as a paved area. But it may be that with modifications, with stormwater improvements, that the commission feels like things are dealt with and there's no need to take enforcement action. Again, it's really wacky the way the statute of repose works, that every time a property is sold, you can take enforcement action against that person for something they didn't do. But it is the way the law works, and it is a tool the commission can use to fix issues that cause detrimental impacts on wetlands. Here, I think it's probably clear that the addition of pavement here is causing some issues with that wetland. What's proposed generally here in this filing without the pavement, I think mostly meets the standards. There are some small things like in KWPR requires an O&M plan for stormwater BMPs. So I think best practices here would say that you have a plan for how this is going to be maintained over time to ensure that it continues to function. And everything else, I think generally, would meet the standards because the area has clearly been developed for a long time. You're putting a fence and plantings right up against the wetland edge, but that area already had some version of a giant metal fence with giant posts in it and has been maintained for longer than I could see through aerial imagery. I sort of wrote down that the commission should, officially confirm that this area was in that, landscaped condition historically, and that everything here, would meet the standards of KWPR. I wrote that if you were going to approve this, they're going to be removing these fence posts. You could consider adding special conditions to any permit to protect the wetlands. Basically, if machinery is going to be coming in to remove those posts and install a new fence with the proximity of the work to the resource areas, how are they going to protect that area during that work? And I think it's important to discuss whether the type and location of erosion control here is sufficient to protect the resource areas, given, again, the proximity to the wetlands where the work is going to happen. You would likely have a large amount of soil disturbance when you're installing plantings and a stormwater BMP. But I think the biggest thing was the pavement and discussing whether or not that was something that the applicant was looking to wrap up and be done with, or if it's something that they're looking to just see if they can make the situation better and go forward.
Well, let's hear from the applicant.
May I? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant would like to close out the issues on site, so there is nothing remaining for any future owner. So, we'd like to discuss what that solution would look like in order to get the commission comfortable and approve that and close this out.
Okay. We'll open it up to discussion on the board. So it seems like there's some things that we should be bringing into this, and it seems that they're amenable to bring it in. I think ultimately, from where I stand, I think they need some more time to work it through. Do we want to discuss anything else? Is there anything glaring that you all as commissioners have on this discussion?
No, I think that was pretty well defined going forward, the activity that should take place, and I think continuing it makes sense. So they have the time to do that.
I can add, please, just if you like. I think if you just modified the application to say we also want to permit the pavement in retro, it probably wouldn't get through as is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that typically when you run into needing a variance, the commission rightfully doesn't like to issue those things under DOAs, typically require NOIs for that. When it's retrospective, that may be something the commission might be willing to deal with, given that the pavement's already there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you need to either remove the amount of impervious surface on the property to get much closer to the maximum 15% allowed by KWPR, or provide enough mitigation to make it obvious that it's okay that that amount of pavement is there because this area over here mitigates that.
Okay. And adequate mitigation, I would assume, would be installing stormwater controls to meet that 100-year storm event per your regulations?
Yeah, I would say it's typically that it's either getting stormwater into the ground so it's not running off into wetlands, particularly when it involves pavement, or buffer zone restoration, that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think some combination of lessening pavement and increasing the capacity of the stormwater BMP could do the trick.
Okay.
And then wrap it all up and be done with it. And I think the commission would probably be willing to hear that as an RDA. I mean, you can file anything as an RDA, but I mean, they may be willing to issue a DOA on that, given that we're not talking about getting a variance to install pavement there above the 15%. It's already done, and it's somebody just trying to fix the situation.
Okay. And so would potentially, we talked about a combination of removing some pavement and providing adequate stormwater controls. What if we removed all of that so-called new pavement, unpermitted pavement, and replaced with something pervious?
Yeah, I think as long as it's pervious.
Okay.
Because we talk a lot about like gravel being pervious, but when you have gravel that involves a lot of fines or has been compacted heavily, then it doesn't really percolate. So I think that if it was like just go in, I don't know what's underneath the pavement, but I imagine if you went in there and just ripped up the pavement, what's underneath it probably isn't pervious right now. So it might be a combination of removing that and the underlayment and getting down to where there is percolation and then building it back up either with pervious pavement or something else that's pervious, like crushed stone or something along those lines.
Right.
There's options anyways. There's a few different ways you could go with that. You can kick ideas off of my office in the meantime. So we can definitely help you with that. We're not gonna come up with all the ideas or anything, but if you have an idea or a few options or something and you wanna ask us if we think that something like that might, pass muster with the commission, then we can definitely give advice on that stuff.
Okay.
Let me ask you, do you have any specific questions for Matt, not the technical details, about the process? Would you like to bring those up now, or would you just like a continuance?
Well, I guess my question would be, if we were to amend the application based upon tonight's meeting, to permit that pavement or do something to mitigate for it, do we need to refile, or can we just continue this as a modification?
We can continue this as a modification. It's just a matter of how long.
Okay.
Our review deadline right now our review timeline for continuance is 1 week, which becomes problematic because we're a 4-day work week now, so that only gives me really 1 day to review that information and get it to the commission with substantial time before the meeting. So given that there are more substantial changes to this than you would typically see in a continuance, I would just want a little more time for review. So I wouldn't want to be chasing 2-week continuances until it's done. So I think if you thought you could have all this stuff done in like 2 days, then maybe we continue it for 2 weeks. Otherwise, I would say start with a month and just get us the information as soon as you can.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All
Sounds
right. Do
good.
I hear a motion to continue? What do you think, 2 weeks or a
Does the
month?
commission have any other questions or comments?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the general instruction is to discuss it amongst yourselves.
We're just saying if we agreed to remove the pavement, would the commission agree to that this evening with a plan to follow up to actually show that for the
We'd
record?
want to see the plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see it
So
first.
not tonight based on a verbal.
Sure, okay,
All right.
all right.
Would you like 2 weeks or a month? Continuance.
Let's do 2 weeks.
All right.
Yep.
Be
and I
mindful
will
of the deadlines.
Get that plan to you ASAP, because I'm going to London
So
tomorrow
what's
night.
that, July, what's that?
Matt, the 2 week, is that, what date is that?
July 8th.
July 8th, okay. Do I hear a motion to continue to July 8th?
So I'll move that we continue to July 8th.
All right, we have a motion by Marilyn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dot. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. All right, that motion passes. See you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. hearing.
We're gonna move on to hearings.
Oh, do you have to jump to the hearing?
Yeah.
Looks like it's gonna be back at the end somewhere.
What pages?
It's right towards the end. Yeah.
So much enforcement.
Public hearings.
All right. We're gonna move on to public hearings, section A, 18 Smith's Lane, map 67, lot 82-1, notice of intent. I'll now continue a hearing for the notice of intent submitted by South Shore Survey on behalf of Ronald Bernzano for the proposed construction of a single-family house with associated utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone to inland wetland resource areas in the 200-foot riverfront area. Matt, could you brief us?
Yeah, I think this one's essentially new, so we should do a presentation. We
Okay.
have Courtney Beckwith online.
All right, Courtney, please walk us through the project, introduce yourself for the record.
Sure. Hi, I'm Courtney Beckwith with South Shore Survey, here to talk about 18 Smiths Lane.
Do you have a
Is
mic
it a-
setting, perhaps?
Can we get more
Oh.
volume in the room, or is it maxed?
Let's see. If I get closer. Hello, is this any better?
Yep,
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And is it okay to share my screen?
please.
Sure. All right. So this is 18 Smiths Lane in Kingston. And the applicant, well, the existing site is, it's mostly grass with some gravel showing through. This area right here, this dotted line, is where we delineated the existing gravel area. We tried to underestimate how much of the lot has gravel underneath the vegetation that's growing through as lawn for the purposes of our riverfront analysis calculations. But currently there is this gravel entryway. There's a paved rectangle here with a shed on top of it. There are some concrete tire stops along this entrance here. There is a new sewer stub that was installed for a future residential house or home that doesn't necessarily pertain to conservation. But that does mean that we will not need to install a septic system. And in this back section of the yard, there is a vinyl fence going pretty much right on the property line. There are two concrete blocks right here. These are actually the weights put in the back of empty dump trucks or empty snowplows that had sand in it, just to act as a counterweight. Because this lot was used as a contractor's yard for several years by the applicant's family. They stored trucks, and the gravel that's here is leftover gravel from septic installations. Once they finished the job, they would put the leftover gravel on their lot and use that as a surface for their trucks. There are also a couple statues back here, and we just discovered a septic tank manhole back here, which we believe goes to a 500-gallon tank, but we did not pop the cover, so we're not entirely sure what's under there. We only knew that it existed because a neighbor asked if it was still there because he watched it get installed. So after a couple minutes with a metal detector, we did find it. So what we are proposing, and here are, there is a intermittent stream up here. This line is sort of the river.
Perennial stream, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, perennial stream. I keep doing that, I'm sorry. This is the 100-foot riverfront buffer, and there's only a little piece of the property that's actually in that 100-foot riverfront. But then there is bordering vegetated wetlands that do cross over onto the property here. So we have the buffer zone to the wetland, as well as the 200-foot riverfront buffer, and then the 100-foot BVW buffer. And inside of all of this, we are proposing a 1,400 square foot single family dwelling and a driveway. We tried to keep this as far as we could out of the buffer zones, but we had to also keep it far enough for zoning setbacks. And we provided this table here. It doesn't look like it's hatched purple anymore. Okay, there it is. To show the areas that are on the lot that are in the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. And the total riverfront area on the lot would be from this 200-foot riverfront onward. And the existing degraded area is where we calculated it from this gravel, and then the existing pavement, and then this existing gravel section that is associated with the neighbor's driveway, but it is on our land. And we are proposing to remove all of this existing impervious area and put the house on top of where the gravel area is, to try to minimize any impact. And I have these percentages down here. I know we have another group of percentages from Brad Holmes.
We ended up in another great place. So then that night we went, Claire wanted to go on the Jack the Ripper tour. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we did never done.
Sorry, hang on one second.
It was like we
Can
had
you
to
mute
some light.
where that is?
They're muted.
I'm sorry, please continue.
All right. So this is our main proposed conditions, and then this is our proposed planting plan. This was prepared by ECR, Environmental Consulting and Restoration, Brad Holmes. And he has also provided a riverfront analysis memo to the commission, explaining his opinion that most of this riverfront area is previously degraded, and that doing this mitigation here with some of these bayberry, witch hazel, and eastern red cedar plantings will overall reduce the total impervious area within that jurisdictional buffer area. And that's the summary of the plan. Are there any questions on that? I might have missed something or skipped over
Well,
it.
let me ask you this, if you're done with your original pass on this, we're gonna open it up to Matt, and if you need more time, we're gonna stick with you, but we're not gonna do questions yet, okay?
Okay.
Would you like more time, or is it?
I'm okay going to Matt.
All right, we might have some questions, we'll ask you specifically to address when it's time. If you need to speak, please raise your hand, okay? All right, Matt, could you walk us through your staff report?
Yeah, and I think unless the commission disagrees, that I'm going to skim through a lot of this stuff, because I have provided you with the staff report, and I've also provided the applicant with the staff report.
Okay.
So I don't want to go through every detail of this. I think some of the bigger ticket things here, just to cover any questions about enforcement for unpermitted work. The only thing that would really be considered here as unpermitted work would be the shed and the paved area underneath where the shed is. Everything else, the gravel as well, but that's a little bit more complex.
Septic, too.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what year the neighbor had seen that septic go in, but that might have predated. So basically, the way it works essentially is anything that was already existing when the Rivers Act passed in 1996 is considered to be exempt from riverfront standards. So if there's already landscaping there, then you can't take enforcement action on there being landscaping there. It doesn't mean that you need to allow further development, but it means you can't take enforcement action on the fact that this lot was cleared prior to the Rivers Act passing. From our local bylaw, because the Rivers Act, that's just river, that doesn't cover buffer zone, and there is BVW and BVW buffer zone here. So KWPR states that any work that was already done before KWPR was passed is considered to be of a legal nature. So again, there's no grandfathering. It doesn't mean that something, that you have to allow something to go in there, but it means you can't take enforcement action for something that was done prior to that. So the only things here that were not considered, legally permitted would be the pavement and the shed. But it's interesting because the filing in between the regular NOI and Brad's portion of it talks a lot about degraded area and calculates degraded area. But degraded area is only relevant if it was degraded before August 7th, 1996. And I discussed this with them when they first filed the NOI, or after we had the first hearing where I said they had to kind of work on some things, was in order to go forward as though the area is degraded, you have to really show that the area was degraded before 1996. And I didn't see any solid evidence in the filing or anything that they had sent that really proves that all of that gravel was in place before 1996. So I think that's an important consideration to this. I think that they should update the filing to provide further evidence of compliance with the riverfront standards of Wetlands Protection Act and the local bylaw. If you determine that the property meets the criteria that everything is previously degraded, then you don't have to do that. You could issue orders of conditions on the property. But I think that it's something that they should go back to and redo. And I think that mitigation obviously is going to be a component of this, and they have shown mitigation on this plan. I think that the mitigation that was shown could be done better in a way to be more, I don't want to say protective, but really protective of the wetlands and the riverfront. What you see is mitigation of the outer riverfront area where it's in between, this property and the neighboring property where there has been some gravel installed, removing the gravel and planting that native vegetation. But we essentially have a property where there's zero buffer zone to the BVW. There's, mowed grass and yard area and fence right up to the edge of the BVW. So if you were going to mitigate on this property, I think you would mitigate where it protects the BVW and the closer parts of the riverfront area than the further extent, because I think that would have a better impact, and it makes it easier for the commission to see the value of it and allow development that does modify the riverfront area. I'll just flip through and make sure that I covered everything I wanted to cover on this. I did say for ESC, they proposed a 36-inch tall silt fence with 2 layers of 12-inch diameter straw wattle behind around the limit of work and material storage area. The proposed installation does match the standards of the manufacturer, recommending sinking the base of the silt fence into the soil. Due to the presence of the silt fence, provided that it is properly dug in, straw wattle may be sufficient. Otherwise, I typically recommend 12-inch silt sock for best protection against siltation. So again, if it's installed correctly, I don't really have an issue with the ESC as described, but typically you would see 12-inch silt sock, not straw wattle on something like this. The riverfront analysis memo is correct in saying the site has been maintained in an altered condition since at least the early 1990s, and in fact it does appear to have been altered back to at least 1971, possibly earlier. But altered is a wetlands permitting term simply implying change, and it's different from that developed or degraded that I talked about. That's part of the riverfront language. So in order to be considered previously developed or degraded, the site must contain structure, pavement, lack of topsoil, junkyards, or abandoned dumping grounds, and must have been like that before August 7th, 1996. So if you don't have clear evidence that all of that gravel, shed, and pavement was in place when the Rivers Act passed, how can you determine that they were not added in violation of it? And if they were unpermitted modifications following August 7th, 1996, then their removal would not count as improvements, but would be expected from an enforcement standpoint. Just a quick reference from KWPR. In the riverfront area section, the commission may require that the applicant maintain a strip of continuous, undisturbed vegetative cover within the 200-foot riverfront area unless the applicant overcomes the presumption of significance by a preponderance of the credible evidence that the area or a portion of it may be disturbed without harm to the wetland values. Again, the property appears to have been generally altered, but I don't know that it meets the standards of being degraded prior to that. It's not clear whether the proposal meets the standard of 310 CMR 10.585A, which states that at a minimum, proposed work shall result in an improvement over existing conditions of the capacity of the riverfront area. The house is proposed further from the stream than the existing structures on the property, and the project proposes removal of the closer structures, the shed and the paved area, which is better and does meet that standard. However, the shed and pavement do not appear to predate the Rivers Act and constitute unpermitted modifications to jurisdictional areas. As the required coverage table is not listed on the plan or in the NOI packet, it's unclear whether the proposal increases or decreases impervious coverage within commission jurisdiction. Yeah, and just getting into that a little bit more, this application does not appropriately calculate impervious coverage. It splits it between buffer zone and RFA rather than the entire jurisdictional area, which is not terribly different based on the way that's laid out, but we still don't have that. Proposed impervious coverage in jurisdictional buffers is 10.13% beneath the maximum 15% allowed, but still the plan should be updated to show that. 18 square foot would be added to the total if the concrete pads and the 15-foot buffer are allowed to remain. I think at this point they've said they're going to remove those, so that was a change. Yeah. That's all I have. Essentially, this is a property that's been developed for a long time in some capacity, but not necessarily developed or degraded prior to August 7th, 1996, the way that you would need it to be in order to sort of breeze through the riverfront standards. So I think that unless the commission feels otherwise, that the applicant would either want to come with more evidence that at least all of the gravel on the property predates that and could be considered part of the mitigation or part of the previously disturbed area, or take another stab at meeting the riverfront standards of the state and the local.
All right, we'll open it up to the commission for discussion. Questions from that?
I have a question. That tank, the 500-gallon tank in the back of it, of the property, do you have plans to explore that and find out what's in it? Because it could be toxic to river and other wetland areas. Could be leaking. I think that should be one of the first things that you examine. And I'm curious why somebody would have put a septic system on an empty lot, and does it attach to anything?
Am I allowed to
Yep.
respond? Okay. The tank, what we're assuming, we don't know for sure that this is why it was put in. But we do know that this was a septic installation, like contractor yard, and that they had pump trucks. And we're thinking that this might have been where they emptied out extra moisture and liquid that they had in the trucks, especially in the wintertime if there were concerns with freezing in the lines. So we're guessing that it was used as sort of like a industrial wastewater holding tank where they would just drain what they had in their trucks into that. We don't know for sure. We definitely are concerned with it. We are pretty sure that it's dry. It's been there for a while. it would take a little bit of effort to actually get that open. But we're assuming it's dry and empty, and that we were talking about either abandoning it and crushing and filling it in place, so as to not disturb more ground than we need to, but we don't want to leave an empty structure like that, just for safety hazard as well.
Right.
What year did the neighbor think that they saw it installed?
I know it was when Ron was a kid, and he's 68 around then. So it would have been, I mean, at least 50 years ago.
You're talking about the septic system?
Yeah.
It wasn't a septic system, it's just the tank portion.
Oh, that tank. Okay. Well, what about the septic system?
There is no septic
I
system.
think it's just the
Just a
septic tank that they were pumping whatever they had in their truck
Oh, okay.
into, but it
So there's no
didn't, sounds like it
infiltration or
didn't
anything
have,
like that?
I don't think we
You
could
mean a leaching
say
field, is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
No.
It may have just had holes in it,
okay.
that's my guess.
All right.
I think we would all feel more comfortable with a lot more clarification on that one, right? Other questions?
No, I mean, Matt listed all the different calculations and things that need to be taken care of, and then the issue of the tank. I mean, I think there are several things to address. And
Yes.
it would probably be necessary to continue.
I 100% agree. So, Matt, I think your report was great, as they always are. I think ultimately, we should be asking if they're open to a continuance, so that they can work on checking off some of those items that you brought up. Courtney, are you open to a continuance to address the items that we've discussed here tonight and that you've seen on the staff report?
Yes, that will work. I do have a question, but I'm okay with the continuance.
Do you have a question for us as a board, or just something you can work through with Matt?
I think for the board, I don't know how to confirm what that septic structure is. And I'm not sure if we'll be able to explore it per se until we have like an actual truck or excavator in the yard to open up the lid. I'm not sure the best way.
Let me just ask on that, how deep is this? How deep is the tank? And, I mean, you found it with a,
Yep, so the cover's only like now it's uncovered. I don't think it's been reburied. It was only like half an inch below the surface. You could sort of see an outline of it. It's right up next to that one big tree here.
So you can get the cover open without an excavator, probably.
Probably, yes.
So I think that would be a start, is get the cover open and do some sort of, I would say for starters, a visual inspection.
we definitely want to know if there was any pipes associated with it. Because a sealed tank or a tank that just drains out the side is different than something that indicates there's more structure that we
Okay.
don't know about. So I think the first step is to get your eyes on it, or a competent set of eyes on it, and be able to report on that. Because right now, it's just, there's something there, you can tell it's there, and I think we need a lot more information on that to be able to provide qualified guidance.
And they have some pretty cool cameras now with lights on them, right?
Absolutely.
That can get, yeah.
There's lots of technology out there, but if there's no pipes, then this, what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, that sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
How long for a continuance?
I think the 4 weeks would be best. I don't think we'll be able to get this to you in the next couple of days.
Okay. All right, just to give everybody open time, is there any public comment, questions? I see no question, no hands, and no one's stepping forward.
So what's it, July 22nd?
Matt, is that?
That's July 8th. Oh, wait, sorry,
No.
that is July 22nd, sorry. Do it for a week.
So I move that we continue to July 22nd?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Marilyn, second by Megan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, that motion carries 5-0. Courtney, thank you. Matt will be in touch.
Perfect.
We're gonna take a slight break while Matt's taking care of business. All right, we're gonna move back to action items. We'll now open a public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability for 1 North Street submitted by the applicant Ann Antonellis for replacement of 4 non-native bushes with 6 native bushes within land subject to coastal storm flowage, coastal bank, and their associated buffer zones. Where this is the first meeting, for this proposal, we'll now hear an introduction from the applicant. Ann, are you on?
I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm having horrible Wi-Fi. So I put a RDA in for these 4 bushes that are not native. And this is the ones I had come in and we talked about. You guys said, well, you got to put an RDA in if you want to talk about them. So they're very invasive bushes with no real help to the area. Matt and Georgiana have been there and looked at them. So my proposal is to take them down and then replace them with bushes that have been approved, or at least native bushes that Matt and I talked about, and he said that those would probably be acceptable, and I had already bought them. So because they get sold really more in the early part of the season, and then you can't find them. So I'm hoping to be able to take those down, the other ones, and then put these in. And also, while taking them down, to treat the roots so that, you know, they won't come back.
Okay. All right, please, put your mute back on. If you have something, please raise your hand, but there's some background noise that we want to minimize, and then we'll hear from Matt. Matt, could you give us your take on this?
Sure, yeah, we discussed this the last time we were talking about the property. It's relatively easy in this situation. You have 4 invasive shrubs growing just above the top of Coastal Bank, and cutting those, treating the cut stumps, and replacing with native species is beneficial. This is an area that's already behind conservation posts that are to be installed through an enforcement issue that's already been dealt with, and the posts are actually scheduled to be installed tomorrow because there's a fence company installing them, and that was all scheduled out. So that part's good. I think this is something that's pretty easy to permit. I think special conditions the commission could consider here would be requiring the root systems of the shrubs to remain in place to maintain bank stability. So you basically want to cut it and then just dab the cut stem with a little bit of herbicide in order to make sure it doesn't grow back and continue to need to be maintained. But making sure that the root system is not disturbed, and stating that the replacement bushes must be allowed to grow and spread and not be pruned. Again, this is an area that's behind conservation posts. The intent is not to create garden beds here. And you would also probably add a condition that appropriate erosion and sedimentation controls be used as necessary during planting. If you have a situation there where people are digging holes to plant shrubs and they don't do anything and leave a bunch of dirt exposed, and then it rains, then you have some bad issues with there. And I think already at this site there is some straw wattle from previous planting, and it may be sufficient, or she may need to add a little bit more to get behind where these are, but that's all a pretty easy lift.
All right, we'll open up the discussion to the commissioners.
Were you going to add the no use of chemicals?
Yeah, so she just mentioned that. So, I mean, you can add that as a special condition. I should specify that it's done exactly the way I said.
Add it to the list?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Other questions? We'll open it up to the public if there's any questions. All right, commissioners, are we feeling that this is something that we could issue a -3 DOA with special conditions as discussed?
Yeah.
All right, perhaps I have a motion for that. All right, we have a motion by Megan for the -3 DOA with special conditions as discussed. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Marilyn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, hearing none, that passes 5-0. All right, thank you. Matt will be in touch, okay? No, ma'am,
She's got.
your Wi-Fi is off.
Much energy for the,
She's on the next one too, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah, she's on for the
Okay.
RCOC.
I know, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
probably every 3 seconds, we're hearing a bit of,
Do I need to?
Why don't you turn your video, try turning your video off, that should help. If you turn your video off, it uses less, whatever, bandwidth? Is that-
Okay, oh, video off,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, try that.
Have to figure out how to do that. Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Oh, wait a sec.
Yep,
Let's
perfect.
stop video, okay. Okay, so that,
All right. and
is that
then-
better?
Yep, just give us a
Do I
second.
need to
We'll
stay
do-
for the next thing?
Yeah, we're gonna need you
The
to
as-built?
stay.
Okay,
Yeah, please.
Wait a second. All right,
okay, that's fine.
give me 1 second, sorry.
Haven't even left. So we.
All right,
You've got an open mic
let's
there.
just mute it. I will now open a public meeting to discuss the request for certificate of compliance for 1 North Street submitted by Grady Consultant, LLC, in regards to orders of conditions issued to Ann Antonellis under DEP file number 037-0917 for the raise and rebuild of a single-family dwelling within the 100-foot buffer zone to coastal wetland resource area. Right?
I wasn't listening.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
listening.
What part were you questioning?
No, it's fine. As this is first meeting on this request, we'll now hear an introduction from the applicant.
I can take over, it's just an
Yep.
RCOC.
All right.
So this was a project that was permitted through orders of conditions in August of 2021. It was a raised rebuild. There were no special conditions on it, just the general conditions that were typically issued. We have the required as-built and engineer certification. We went out and did a site visit. There's pervious deck and sort of a walk-in to the basement, and there's supposed to be a certain depth of crushed stone to maintain pervious status. I went there and used my hand to excavate a little bit. I didn't measure it, but it appears to be generally the depth that they're supposed to be. And if there was not a pervious condition there, the water would actually run into the house, not into the resource area directly, which is something that, they're gonna keep up on it. Project appears to have been mostly built in compliance with the OOCs. There are small discrepancies between what was built and the submitted site plan of record, and that consists of approximately 58 square feet of stone walkway connecting the front stairs to the road. That was not on the permit plan. Outdoor propane storage and an outdoor shower, both of which were not depicted on the permit plan, within the 100-foot buffer to top of coastal bank, but in the outer extents. Stairs off the deck on the east side of the house cross 2 feet into the 50-foot buffer zone to top of coastal bank. Stairs to the basement under the pervious deck no longer extend past the pervious deck located underneath it, which is not, anything really problematic. So it's up to the commission really as far as what they consider to be substantial or not. I didn't see anything with this that I thought really was substantial in terms of not issuing a COC, but if the commission has questions about anything, we can discuss.
All right, we'll open it up to just get commissioner discussion. Questions from Matt, the applicant? Anybody have concerns with the outdoor shower area or the only question that I have, Matt, is about the propane tank location, just as, the general location of, because I don't remember that. I mean, 2021 was a long time ago. I don't know if I was here for that filing or not, but potentially, are we in any kind of velocity zone or anything that we need to be concerned with, something tearing it apart?
Nope.
Okay. I
You have velocity zone in the area, but it is beneath the top of Coastal Bank at this site. So where I can pull it up on the screen if y'all want to see it, but the
Not for me.
propane storage is above ground, which is an important consideration because that's generally not something that's allowed within certain distances, and it's probably starts 90 feet away from the top of Coastal Bank. So the only thing that I think from a permitting standpoint is something a little bit more, not concerning, but something that would need a variance if it were permitted, is the 2 foot of overlap into the 50-foot setback off of the deck. Technically makes that mean the structure is within 50 feet of the resource area. But again, it's stairs off of a deck leading to lawn or front lawn area. It's
All right.
it's not really something that's super concerning situationally.
Are we ready for motion? What are we thinking? My feeling is request and issue the certificate of compliance. Does anybody else disagree?
No.
All right, do we have a motion to?
So I move that we issue the certificate of compliance.
Okay. All right. We have a motion by Marilyn, second by Megan. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. All right, that motion carries 5-0 to issue the certificate of compliance.
Thanks,
Thank
and
you,
have a good
Ann.
night.
Yep.
And I
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Right.
Good night.
so I find there's
All right, thank you. All right, I'll now continue a public meeting to discuss 2 requests for certificates of compliance for 18 Old Mill Road submitted by Steinbeck and Taylor in regards to the orders of conditions issued to Craig Schul under DEP file number 037-0653 and 037-0772 for construction of 2 additions and an attached garage on a single-family home within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands in the 200-foot riverfront area. Matt, could you give us a briefing?
Sure. We've already gone through this one before. This was the issue with the dumping behind the unpermitted shed. They filed an RDA for the shed, which we'll talk about next. We received there was an issue with the downspout not being connected to the dry wells that needed to be installed. We got on June 1st information that the remaining downspout had been connected to the dry wells, and on June 16th, we received a restoration proposal from ECR addressing the fill behind the shed. And it talks about removing the steep slope of the compost pile by hand raking and shovels and moving the material off to the side of the shed into a sort of already disturbed area, and seed with a shade-tolerant native seed mix and hand planting native shrubs. And I met Brad Holmes on site on Monday and I just want to sort of understand a few things about what the plan was, and he explained everything. I gave a few recommendations, and he updated the plan on the 22nd to use those recommendations, including, use of erosion control where necessary, and addition of the conservation posts that were previously discussed, one on either side of the shed, 2 feet high, 2 feet below ground, just to try to get at, a little more protection for that area. So I said the commission should decide if the proposed plan sufficiently addresses the unauthorized fill and decide if separate permitting is needed to implement the plan. I believe the plan is sufficient, and I think the best pathway to permit that would be issuance of an enforcement order. I think what you would do is write an enforcement order mandating that work get done and that the conservation posts are installed. The restoration plan calls for a post-completion report, but no post-completion monitoring. It's up to the commission whether in this case they'll require the 2 years of post-completion monitoring typically required in these restoration projects. And that also could be put in as a condition of an enforcement order. So I would think that if the commission wanted to issue an enforcement order permitting and mandating that restoration work, then I would have no issue with the commission issuing a COC on this, because you've already at that point mandated that the restoration has to happen, and everything else appears to now be in compliance with the OOCs.
Okay, open it up for discussion on the board. Any comments on what Matt had discussed? Do we feel that issuing the COC is the right path and addressing the future work with the enforcement order? Everybody in agreement? Okay. All right, public comment. Do we have any comment from the public? All right, hearing none. All right, perhaps we have a motion to issue, to approve the request and issue a certificate of compliance, separate motions, with the understanding that we're going to put an enforcement action behind it for the second part of it.
Do you want 2 separate motions or just one?
I think 2 separate
Clean,
motions
right?
is cleaner.
Yeah, just maybe reference that we're putting, we're addressing two actions here, so we know that we're voting with the understanding that we're going to do the enforcement action.
So you could have one motion for the enforcement order permitting and mandating the work and the posts.
Yep.
Yes.
Is that sufficient, Matt?
Yeah, how do you feel about
And then this.
post-completion monitoring?
Yeah.
Typically, you
And
see 2
include
years
that,
of
yes.
post-completion monitoring to
Right.
make sure it works. This is a pretty small area, but it is
But it's a big change.
kind of a concerning one, so
Yeah.
I would think you'd want that.
Okay,
Agreed.
so I'll make that motion.
For the enforcement order?
Mhm.
Okay, as discussed with the
Right.
conditions. All right, so we have a motion by Marilyn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dot. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, so the enforcement order passes 5-0 to 0.
Clarification on that.
Sorry.
What's your date on the enforcement order? You have to pick a date that the work gets done by.
Oh, you mean a deadline?
Yeah,
Deadline, sorry.
yeah.
Let's open it up to
What kind
discussion.
of time do they need? 2 weeks?
How much?
A month?
how-
2 weeks is probably tight.
I would say at least a month.
2 months, a month?
Say a month.
Please.
I'll be quick.
Yep.
Rich Savant with Steinbeck and Taylor, yeah. I know these homeowners have been through a lot with this whole process. He's ready to do the work right away. I know you mentioned possible monitoring for the plant, so we could still have this thing open for another 2 years at this point, is what we're.
No,
talking
I mean,
about.
the COC would be issued.
Yeah, that'll be closed.
Now.
Right.
But after the work is done, you'd have the following 2 years, you'd have somebody, whether it was ECR or somebody else, come out, take a look at it, write a report, send it to the commission by usually December 15th. So if this is an escrow situation, I would think that somebody that's a wetland scientist could quote that in advance, I would imagine. Because
Right.
it's a pretty easy thing to quote. They're coming
Sure.
out, looking at it, writing a thing, and they have pretty
Right.
standard forms for that. So I would think it should put everything to bed. It's just that there is that requirement that happens. And the question that I would have for you on this is, who is the enforcement order being written out to? because we have
Right.
new property owners, but we have an agreement there with escrow where the former property owner is taking care of this stuff. So what you wouldn't want to happen is, you know, essentially, I think the cleanest way to deal with it would be the money goes to the new homeowner to contract a company like ECR to come back and do that, and they would be responsible if they don't do it.
Right.
So if they don't do it, then you get hit with enforcement to do it.
Right. Does
So-
I have a question. The enforcement itself, is that something that gets recorded? It's another lien on the property, or is that just something through the commission?
No, enforcement doesn't get recorded, it just has to get done, or fines get issued.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on it. Yeah, I know this homeowner is ready to go out and I know he'll need professionals to assist with it, but he wants just to get it done as quick as possible, so. I think he'd be up for that.
So time-wise, how much time do you think he would need?
I mean, typically with things like this, you're going to a company like ECR to get the work done, and they're probably pretty busy. So, again, you plant something this time of year, the chances of success are super low. So you probably don't even want to do this until September, October. So, I mean, you could put a 6-month on it and just
Yeah.
make sure they get it done in the fall. But I mean, 6 months is a little silly because it's right before Christmas when you're checking in on them to see if they did it. So maybe you want to set something saying it has to be done by,
November 1st?
I was gonna say Halloween, but whatever, either way works.
All right, so cleanest way, Matt, just a new motion, new vote? Or do we need to kill the other one?
Just add the date. the
Just,
deadline.
yeah. If you wanna clarify it a little bit and then revote it, that's fine.
All right. Good luck.
All right, so a motion to issue the enforcement order with a deadline for the work to be done by November 1st, and the work being done, the installation of the posts and the 2 years monitoring. What else, Matt? Is that everything?
You got it?
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion by Marilyn, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Kalina.
Nope, I thought.
I was looking, sorry. We'll give it to Dot. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. All right, hearing none.
And then you need
So
the
that
second
motion
one.
carries 5-0 to 0. Now we need a second motion to issue the COC.
Anybody?
So moved.
We have a
Second.
motion by Megan,
Second.
a second by Marilyn. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstained. Hearing none, that the COC is issued 5-0.
I would say, make sure we talk about, yeah, we need to make sure that the process works well, issuing this directly to the current property owner. And making sure that financially everything can still happen that way. Otherwise, we can issue it to the former property owner.
Moving on, I will now continue a public meeting to discuss the request for determination of applicability for 18 Old Mill Road submitted by Steinbeck and Taylor on behalf of Craig Schul for construction of a shed within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and the 200-foot riverfront area.
I can go.
Do you, well, he's up, so let's hear from the applicant, unless you want to.
Well, I
Let
want
me
to know
go.
what Matt has to say.
Matt, let's do this.
I think now that you've issued an EO mandating that the enforcement-related work gets taken care of and a COC has been voted, then I have no issue with issuing a -3 determination for retrospective permitting of the shed.
Okay. Anyone have any questions, Matt? All right, do we hear a motion to issue a -3 DOA?
I'll make that motion.
All right. We have a motion by Marilyn, seconded by Megan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Hearing none, that motion passes 5-0.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you
Good
for
night.
your help with this.
It's a lot of paper. I will now continue a public meeting to discuss the request for certificates of compliance submitted by Beals and Thomas on behalf of the permit recipient, Adam Schumacher, for construction of a dual-use agriculture and solar array system within existing cranberry bogs at 126 Ring Road DEP file number 037-0890, and 131 and 137 Ring Road, DEP file number 037-0889. As these projects are very similar and closely connected, the commission will discuss both requests at the same time. However, questions or concerns related specifically to only one of these requests may also be brought forward. Matt, do you have a briefing?
Yeah, and just for the record, the applicant requested continuance, but was asking if the commission wanted to give a little feedback, if anybody has been able to review this. So we were only waiting for one more thing on this, and it was that emergency materials, getting at best practices for firefighter safety and keeping contamination from wetlands in the case of a battery storage fire. We received a letter today referenced as an environmental emergency response plan. I, sent it out to the commission for review, did a quick review. It's just a one-page document, and I emailed the applicant back and told them I wasn't sure if it met, the requirements of that special condition. Technically, this was a special condition that was supposed to be done before work started, and we just didn't catch that and hold them to it. So now the batteries have been there for a while, and we still kind of don't have that there. This essentially goes through the timeline and what the property owner will do in the case of a battery or PV array fire. And it says they'll immediately call the Kingston and Plimpton Fire Departments, and then they'll call the Mass DEP Emergency Response Division hotline within 2 hours of a release or spill of oil or hazardous materials. It says it's their expectation that once the fire departments arrive on the site, they'll take appropriate action to monitor, reduce the spread, and extinguish the fire as they deem necessary and in accordance with local, state, and federal codes, protocols, and standards. It says, once the site has been rendered safe by the fire departments, Ring Road Solar LLC shall hire an appropriate hazardous materials response contractor to perform a proper assessment, transport, and disposal of hazardous materials off-site as applicable. They shall also hire and retain a licensed site professional and associated contractor to perform necessary sampling and cleanup of nearby soils, surface waters, and groundwater for residual contamination in accordance with the Massachusetts Contingency Plan. So in my discussion with Beals and Thomas on this, I think what came out of it was that I was told they were waiting on information from the solar company and the battery manufacturer in order to be able to provide this stuff to the commission. And then on getting this, I sort of just questioned whether it met the actual language of the condition, and suspected and sort of thought that what I was hearing was that people, being the manufacturer and the solar company, are hesitant to put anything in writing that can be perceived as telling fire departments what to do, which I understand, and that's where you end up with this as they deem necessary and in accordance with local standards, yada, yada. And so I said, if that's the case, I think your best bet is to bring those people with you to the meeting to explain to the commission why nobody can come up with this, when they could caveat anything they write by saying, this is best practices. The fire department is going to do as they feel they need to do to provide for firefighter and public safety. I think what the commission was asking for when that condition was added to the amended order of conditions was, again, it was 5 years ago, battery storage systems were a little bit newer than they are now. There was less information out there about them. So the commission wanted to make sure that the fire departments were getting information from the vendor and from the solar company about what best practices were. And I think at this point, the fire department has had trainings on them that part may not be as necessary. But on the other side of it was the commission wanted guidance for our fire departments to understand if there is a fire there, if there are best practices that they can train their staff on in order to keep that fire and the battery components from contaminating the wetlands. Because essentially, from what I understand, the plan would be to mostly let it burn out, but there may be a component of, at some point, using water to fully extinguish. And what I was trying to explain today is there an amount of water? Is there something that can be used to judge where, complete extinguishment can be reached without risking using a lot of water that might take all of those chemicals and put them
Right.
into the adjacent bog and wetlands. So that you don't have to use a site professional to go in afterwards and remove contamination, so.
I don't think you use water on a lithium battery. I'm assuming it's lithium.
That's basically what, I think, from what I understand, the plan is
Yeah.
that you mostly let it burn out, but at some point you might decide it's time to put it out now, and they apply water
Yeah,
to it.
I think there are special chemicals
foams
used.
or things?
Has nobody talked to the fire department?
I have.
Well, I think there's just a little bit of a clarification. I think the lithium batteries need to just burn out, and then at some point, there's plastics and all that other stuff, and I think they put the plastics out. But this is the whole point of the special condition, is that stuff's supposed to kind of be laid out so
Defined.
that
Yeah,
we can say,
yeah.
okay, people in our town who have to be in dangerous situations, we got you this. I don't know if it's helpful or not, but we
Yeah.
requested it or we required it. And I
Right,
think
but-
that we need.
But the
we-
fire department should have told them whether or not they have these standards in place and the materials to do it with.
Well, usually, so let me just speak from construction side of it. Usually, when we ask for certain things like this, it's to get more information that the firefighters aren't sitting there trying to get updates on whatever's specific to this site. So you don't want to saddle the guys who are busy and that we have to pay for stuff that these guys were supposed to provide to us, and some
Okay.
MSDS sheets, safety data, like,
Yeah,
there's
well-
lots of things that should be a
What
component
I'm
of what we ask
thinking
for.
is, because this is not the only solar thing around, that I would assume the fire department already has information like that.
But it may not be a situation where it's right next to a wetland. That was the interesting thing about this one, is it's very close between where those storage systems are and where the bog is, and the bog is
Right.
directly connected to
But again, the
the
fire
groundwater and
department
the
should be able to
wetlands.
tell you what they use.
I was told water. So.
Well,
it's-
I think you were
again,
told
that's
that it
why-
burns completely, you don't put water on lithium, and then.
Yeah, exactly. I was told, generally speaking, they're going to let it burn out, but there's a point in time where they may decide that it's time for complete extinguishment,
Okay.
and they apply water. But again, this is the point of putting it on the property owner, on the applicant, rather
Okay.
than all of us
Well,
trying
could-
to figure it out with the fire department. The point was to make them come up with the information,
I'm
so
surprised
that
they
they
didn't-
add it to their O&M plan, and that was another point, was this was not added to the O&M plan. So whatever ultimately the commission decides to accept for this should then be added to their official
Okay.
O&M plan, so that it's
Yeah.
there for everybody who's reviewing the site. So if this property gets sold 10 times, that O&M plan keeps getting passed along, and all that
Yeah.
information is there. So all they really asked when they requested continuance was just to get some feedback from the commission on whether they had a lot more work to do, or whether the commission generally thought this would
Okay.
suffice for, meeting that condition, or
Well,
if,
the letter doesn't.
Well,
follow
who's
the
got
process.
the responsibility for the best management practice? I mean, is it the battery company, or,
it's the applicant.
Yeah.
So it's up to
But
them
what's-
to come with the information. How they get the information, that's up to
Okay.
them. I would expect that the battery company would have information on
I would hope so.
what to do in case of fire with their equipment, but they're not necessarily gonna have information about the logistics of this site, and at what point, if you're using water, that water is going to get in large quantity into the wetlands. And that's, I think, what we're supposed to get out of this.
Really, what we want the plan to be very site-specific,
Yes.
Right.
and we want it to be complete. And so I don't think we want to give them any kind of communication that says, oh, well, this is really good. That's not what I'm.
In our best
advocating for.
opinion,
Yeah, I want what we asked for. and-
definitive.
Definitive, yep. Definitive and specific to the
And
site.
it's not.
Right, so, Matt, is that enough guidance for you? So,
Okay, so,
to answer it directly, there's a lot of work, in my
Yeah.
opinion. All right, but the whole project is essentially done, and it should have been there because the batteries have been there, so technically they've been out of compliance for a long time, and I
so
think it's
do you
time to
need a
bring them.
motion to continue that, or?
I think we just continue, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think, 2 weeks?
It's up to you.
A month? What do you guys think about a month?
Yeah, a month. So that's back to July 22nd, isn't it?
22nd, right, yeah. Do I hear a motion to continue to July 22nd?
Sure you do.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion by Marilyn, second by Megan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? All right, so that motion to continue carried. Matt, looks like we're moving to enforcement. 41 Clearing Farm Road. Do you have a briefing for us?
Sure. We did a lot of vernal pool work this spring, part of that community biodiversity initiative, reviewing GIS on one of the potential vernal pools. I noticed recent development a short distance from the pool I didn't recall seeing a permit for. When I reviewed our departmental filing record for 41 Clearing Farm Road, I saw only the initial development of the property, which was single-family house, deck, driveway, septic system. Had an as-built dated June 8th, 2016, showing a vernal pool within a larger IVW. It showed the 100-foot buffer zones for each. This is before the commission was applying the 200 feet from mean high water. And it showed conservation posts generally right behind the IVW buffer at the 100-foot extent of the vernal pool edge. When I checked the property card, it listed building department permitting for a pool in 2021 and a pool house or shed in 2022. I requested the building department files relative to the property, and both permits were issued without conservation department sign-off. One of them predates my tenure here, the other one I had just started. The building inspector or commissioner at the time had signed off on both. The 2021 building permit application contained a document supposedly detailing compliance with wetland and zoning setbacks. Yet, when you look at the detail of it, you can see that the 100-foot buffer to the IVW goes right through the proposed pool itself, and there wasn't any, clearing work, patio, limit work, that sort of stuff shown. So it basically used the 100-foot vernal pool buffer to show that the property, or the project was out of commission jurisdiction, but that wasn't really the case when you looked closely at it. It appears the work was completed and the building permit was closed out by March of 2025. Statute of limitations on the clearing or scraping work would likely be expired at 2 years, but the placement of materials involved in the pool and pool house would renew as daily violations, as well as any addition of turf, landscape plants, things along those lines. I said at a minimum, permitting retro is required, and that gives the commission an opportunity to ensure that the IVW and vernal pool are being properly protected. And since then, I've reached out to the property owners who are here tonight, and we went on site to review the site and to check to see if the pool, there's actually 2 vernal pools there, would meet the certification requirements, which they do. So, let's see. Property was purchased June 30th, 2016. Sorry, I'll back up on this. Being on site for the first time, it was clear that work was jurisdictional based on our measurements. What I asked for the property owners was to reach out to a surveyor that could use the plan of record to mark with stakes where the 100-foot vernal pool buffer was, essentially where the conservation posts were supposed to be. I didn't see any conservation posts on the property when I was there, but I wasn't sure where exactly they were supposed to be laid out. So they were able to get Merrill Engineering involved. They put the stakes out. I went back to review the stakes a few weeks ago, and it was sort of the worst case scenario for them. Unfortunately, I had hoped it was simply just a permitting and retro at the extent of IVW, but the one of the stakes fell right in the pool patio, and closer to the house. It was apparent that at some point conservation posts had been removed and understory had been cleared to make turf and landscape plantings. I have evidence on file that the person who constructed the property and sold the property to the current residents had already removed the conservation posts once and been told to put them back by the conservation department before the sale to these homeowners, and I would suspect that they probably pulled them again before the property changed hands. Either that or they were there and people sometimes just don't know what they are. So it's not great in terms of encroachment on the vernal pool buffer. It's not a simple retroactive permitting issue. Other than that, I was happy with the vernal pool habitat that remains out back. I actually ended up accidentally on the neighbor's property as well, certifying a vernal pool. And in general, behind this development, you know, outside of people's yards, there is intact habitat connecting and around these pools, which is a good thing. I recommended to them that they get in touch with a wetland scientist and start to work on restoration mitigation concept. And I had Brad Holmes reach out to me today from ECR. He said that he's been in contact with the property owners and that they've engaged him to put a plan together. He said he couldn't be here tonight because of other engagements, but he would request a continuance in order to be able to put a plan together to bring to the commission. And that would be my recommendation on this, is rather than to issue an EO now. The property owners have been more than willing to do the work, and they're currently doing the work now.
Did he request continuance to July 8th or beyond?
He did not specify, so the damage is done. I don't know, I mean, it's been like that for, I think, a couple of years, more or less, and there's no rush, essentially. So you could do a month, you could do 2 months. It doesn't really make much of a difference to me. Either way, he'll put a plan together, bring it to the commission, or bring it to my office. We'll review it, we'll give feedback, and then ultimately they'll be coming to the commission with some form of, please don't make me remove our pool patio, and can we keep any of our landscaped area that we weren't supposed to have in the first place.
What if we continue to the first meeting in August?
I have no issue with that. I think, like I said, it's a busy time of year for companies like ECR, in a situation where there is no absolute rush on this, that approving this a month or 2 months from now really makes no difference to vernal pool critters. If wherever they are right now, they're hunkered down, avoiding the heat and drought. And you know, at some point, there will be some form of mitigation that will make better habitat for them to use in the future. So I don't think, I think the first week of August is perfectly fine. I will say, just while we're talking about this, there's another enforcement issue coming to the commission soon that involves development close to a vernal pool, that involves building permit, not issuance, but staff from the building department in the past telling people that, oh, that's fine. So we're working now. I had Georgiana yesterday making a nice sign that we can laminate and put up in sort of on the door and on the glass in the building department. Currently, we have a building commissioner that's working 1 day a week that had recently retired from a different town, and he's been excellent at bringing everything to me for review. So we're trying to get past these situations where somebody at town hall is telling somebody that they can do something when they really have no jurisdiction over wetlands issues, because it's unfortunate when that happens. We should all be working better together.
All right, so I hear continuance. So do you have a date in August for the first meeting?
August 12th?
No, I didn't know if the people wanted to say anything.
I'm sorry.
Probably only if you want them to.
I'm good.
We're gonna open it up for public
Yeah.
discussion if you want to be heard. We're just, right now, we're just talking about giving you more time.
Yeah, you just have to go up to the mic if you want.
For the record, did you sign in?
We did, yeah.
Okay, your name and address for both of you, if you're gonna both speak.
So I'm Jack Sherman, this is my wife, Davy Ann, and we are the owners of 41 Clearing Farm Road.
Okay.
So I guess, first off, you know, we just want to apologize that we're here in this situation. We feel terrible, and I can promise you that there was no ill intent for what we've done. You know, I guess what's a little unique about our situation is that we built everything ourselves, and maybe that's where we fell short a little bit in terms of making sure that we were in compliance. You know, we did, when we submitted the pool plan to the town, we CC'd, I think it was Mary from the Conservation Commission, because we had first called the building department and we said, this is what we'd like to do. You know, what do we need to know? So they gave us some setbacks, from property edge, from, I think, the back of our leaching field, from the vernal pool, buffer zone. And so that basically dictated where our pool needed to go. We kind of, like the way our property's situated, the buffer line kind of does like a triangular cut right through the middle of our property. And so it kind of dictated essentially this one spot where the pool needed to be. And, you know, I think where I think we probably screwed up a bit was there was never stakes out there. There was never property line stakes. There was never conservation posts. So we actually didn't really know in space where we were. And so, you know, and to build on that a little bit further, when we were digging for the pool after we got the permit, we hit a massive piece of ledge kind of on the front side of it that was, from what we could uncover, maybe 30, 40 feet long. So we knew there was no getting that piece out of the ground. So what you'll find in Matt's report, and as we've been working with Merrill and Brad Holmes, we're trying to do some overlays to see exactly where the pool ended up relative to the plan and relative to the original Flaherty and Stefani plan that mapped out where the buffer zone was, that the pool's set back a little bit further than we had originally anticipated. You know, the other component of this too, because we were kind of doing it ourselves, at the time we pulled the permit, we didn't actually have like a master plan, and I think we dropped the ball a bit on that, in terms of really like coming up with the design and where the extents of the patio were gonna be around the pool. That's something that just kind of evolved as we did it. And so we neglected to probably bring that back to the building departments and your attention. You know, again, we apologize for that. I hate that we have to be here and deal with this with you guys. But, you know, I think we're anxious and we're eager to work with you guys to try to come up with hopefully a plan that works, makes us both comfortable. This has honestly been causing a tremendous amount of heartache for our family. Like I said, we built the pool ourselves with our kids, so the thought of having to rip, and the same thing with the yard, you know, Matt mentioned in the report, we have this area of our yard where we have our gardens and plantings, and realizing we're over the line there. And so it's, you know, truthfully, we're losing a lot of sleep over it, so we're anxious to kind of just push this thing forward and get to a resolution and get this thing behind us. So I appreciate you listening and look forward. And to answer your question earlier, or it wasn't a question, but in terms of the time frame, Brad mentioned he needed about a month probably to pull the plan together.
We gave 6 weeks, understanding the constraints this time of year presents for everybody. So it's a pretty straightforward process. Brad will come up with something, I'm sure, and you guys will be back and we'll discuss it. But right now, we're not sitting in judgment. He's basically just advising us that this is what's transpired so that we understand what's moving forward.
Understood.
All right. Anybody have any questions?
No.
Okay. So we do this all the time. It's just, so don't be sad.
I'm
It's
sorry.
just-
No,
It's, you know, like,
I've been having a horrible time with this, so.
yeah. Well,
Take a breath.
These things do happen. Now, just for clarification, this was during COVID.
Yes,
Right.
this was our family COVID project, so.
These things happen a lot, and sometimes I think that generally speaking, we've gotten better as a town about talking to one another in these departments to hopefully avoid this, because it doesn't do anybody any favors. And I totally understand that. I'm sure everybody else here does too. I won't speak for them. But that's basically where we're at. Okay.
Okay, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
So continuance to August 12th.
Continuance, yeah.
August
Did
12th, right?
we didn't vote that, right?
No, we did not.
Make a motion to continue to August 12th.
Second.
Motion by me, second by Megan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? All right, that motion continues. I'm sorry, that motion carries to continue. 5-0. All right, at 164 Pembroke Street, can you brief us on what's going on at 164 now?
Sure.
Oh, I need to recuse myself
We
and
have an
go.
abutter.
Please, yeah, okay. All right, so let the record reflect that Marilyn has recused herself.
We still have quorum, right? We still have quorum?
Yeah, we're a board of 7, we have 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, nobody else is
Are we
being
six?
recused, right?
No.
Well, technically, so 4 out of 7. Is it-
Yeah, when you drop to 6, it doesn't really matter, because it's still.
Right, oh, we got me
Yeah,
6,
six.
okay. All right.
I just don't.
wanna make sure we're good.
Yeah, so, there was a memorandum in 2021 between the property owner and the commission to allow 2 annual site visits to the property to assess compliance. We really hadn't done one of those in a little while, and there was none prior in 2026, so I reached out to the property owner in June. Had some concerns based on landscape activity. I had a butter who is sitting in the crowd reach out in the spring about landscape activity potentially affecting vernal pool life down there, and had seen a lot of landscape activity there through the fall and the spring, and just thought it was a good idea to have a site visit to make sure that we could keep that property in compliance. So we did a site visit on June 10th, myself and Georgiana with the property owner, Joe Kasna, and uncovered several violations of KWPR and WPA, including evidence that landscape cleanup activities have continued infringing on the vernal pool, dumping of lawn edgings, grubbings, soil, leaf litter, and shrub or forb clippings directly into wetlands and within about 15 feet of the mean high water line of the vernal pool, and also cutting of fallen or dead trees from wetlands and or the buffer zone to wetlands. There was also dumping of concrete remnants in a wetland and the filling of a short section of intermittent stream with dirt and rocks, apparently to make easier passage. In talking with the property owner, much of that had happened due to him hiring a newer company. He has his usual guy who does the landscaping on the property for maintenance. He did a lot of work there, redoing beds, removing shrubs, and a little bit of work to the pool area, and hired Brandon Landscaping to do that work. And I suspect, and he also suspects, that they were responsible for the bulk of what I found. Other than the tree work, the property owner told me he had done that himself. One of the trees had fallen on the pool area fence. It was clear that the tree had tipped over and crushed the fence, and he had cut it, and the other one was a dead, supposedly dead tree that was on the other side of the stream, way out behind conservation posts. Both of these are behind conservation posts. Then I talked to the property owner about the fact that he sort of knows that unpermitted tree work got him in trouble on this property in the first place, and that we have a really easy process for dealing with, you know, hazardous trees and whatnot. So getting back to the spring, Commissioner Cazadoi is in a butter to the property on the vernal pool side, observed a worker using a gas-powered backpack blower on Friday, March 27th, 2026 at 11:30 a.m., working down the hill towards the vernal pool, which was something we'd already discussed with the property owner and his usual landscaper. Unfortunately, the Conservation Department was closed when this happened, and I could not get out there to do anything about it or to assess anything. She had heard extensive wood frog chorusing beginning March 21st, continuing up until that blower activity, then ceasing and not recurring. So she had reached out to me at a concern that the activity would be not only detrimental to vernal pool obligate species, but was likely causing direct mortality to obligate vernal pool amphibians, in addition to water quality concerns. Of note, of the interests of KWPR are wildlife and its habitat and wetland plant and animal communities, and also protection of wildlife habitat is listed as an interest of the Mass Wetlands Protection Act. In correspondence with the usual landscaper of the property, they claim that no blowers were used near the vernal pool and that no encroachment occurred, only hand raking the leaves underneath the landscaped shrub bed. They claim that they've been in compliance on the vernal pool for years. The landscaper at O'Kane stated that spring cleanup took place on 2 half-days during the last week of April. Interestingly, on site June 10th with the property owner, I asked about spring cleanup activities, and he said there had been none and that he had done it all himself. So we really don't have information that matches what I saw on the ground, which was when you go down the hill from the lawn through the landscaped bed with large shrubs, all of the dirt is exposed underneath the large shrubs, and down the bottom at the edge of the little bit of remaining vegetated buffer, naturally vegetated buffer to the vernal pool, you see a little berm of pine needles and leaf litter through there that gives the appearance that somebody blew that all in place in a line. I've been a landscaper for a long time, and understand when I see it. On top of that, there was dumped grass edgings and dirt and a clear path that you could see that somebody had taken through either with a wheelbarrow or carrying barrels. So we don't really have consensus between what Commissioner Cossadoy saw in late March and what the property owner and the usual landscaper are stating took place as far as cleanup activities, but I believe what I'm seeing there is that people are still working in that area and working in a way that has detrimental effects on the vernal pool. After the site visit, the usual landscaper sent evidence to my department that some of the piles had been removed from the wetlands. I got 2 photos showing areas that had been cleaned up, and I can probably align them with photos that we took to show which ones they were. I don't have evidence that every bit of it was dealt with. The idea, from what I spoke with Joe on site about, was he would get the stuff removed and call me and come back and do a site visit before the meeting to be able to tell you all that everything was mostly dealt with in terms of what had been dumped there, and that has not happened yet. Recommendations. I already said I suspect, and the property owner supports, that many of these issues are due to a new landscape company he hired to do work in the beds along the house and in the pool area, including concrete work. He admits to the tree removal, and I explained the process there. Trying not to repeat myself here. Property owner explained that he tries to keep that stream clear so that it flows, so that there isn't flooding. And I explained that that's not really up to him to do that sort of work, and that sort of work may result in enforcement action. I think you have the right to protect your property in the sense that if you see a blockage that's currently causing major flooding on your property that's going to affect your structure or your health and safety, that you have the right to go remove that by hand and let things flow. And that's probably about where that ends without permitting. Everything's a threshold matter. It's clear that additional safeguards are needed in order to protect the wetlands on the property, and particularly the certified vernal pool. While the usual landscaper claims they've been in compliance for years, we have information from the abutter that backpack blowers were working on that hill towards the vernal pool on March 27th, and that the wood frog chorus ceased after that. A site visit nearly 2 months later showed clear evidence of dumping landscape debris back there, and appears to show the results of backpack blowers clearing debris from under the landscape shrubs towards the pool. And all of this is within roughly 10 to 15 feet of the pool's edge. And again, the information that we've received doesn't match. So, of note, enforcement orders issued September 29th of last year to the property owner forbid the outdoor application of fertilizers and contaminants on the entire property, which is entirely jurisdictional, without further permitting by the commission. The site visit did not show any violation of those orders, which is good. In my opinion, the best way to protect the vernal pool, which already has a minimal natural buffer, is to issue enforcement orders under WPA and KWPR for the violations described above, requiring the installation of cedar conservation posts 2 foot above and below grade at the extent of the turf lawn where it lies above the vernal pool. Posts would run every 30 feet from the edge of the road layout to the rear fence where the gate to the pool area is. It would be a total of 10 posts. Once the property owner files for a COC for his open orders of conditions for the pool construction, the post's perpetual status could be added as a special condition. These posts would make obvious to landscapers or anyone working on the property that this is a protected area. The accumulation of leaf litter and lack of disturbance would benefit water quality in the vernal pool and reduce detrimental impacts to obligate vernal pool breeding wildlife, which likely attempt to use this area for shelter 11 months out of the year when not breeding. Further, as the horticultural shrubs are mature, large specimens requiring little to no maintenance, and the property owner will be allowed to prune any encroachment beyond the posts into his lawn area, installation of the posts in compliance with the requirement to avoid performing any work beyond them will pose no hardship to the property owner. Those actions will simply help the property owner be able to enjoy use of his property while avoiding issues with the Conservation Commission, assuming that he can control any contractors working on site. If the commission is concerned about continued dumping in the wetlands behind the pool area, which technically is behind conservation posts, They may consider whether the property owner could replace the gate that leads out of the pool area into the wetlands with fencing or render the gate non-functional. The area is already protected by conservation posts, and the property owner has other ways of accessing the rear of the property around the edge of the pool area fence. Any such modifications could be part of any issued EOs. Further, they could state in any EO that any further dumping of landscape debris, construction materials, or any refuse will be met with immediate fines of $300 per pile or location. That's all I have.
All right, we'll open it up for discussion. Matt, is the applicant here? Does he wish to be heard, or does he have a?
I don't see him, and I don't think I recognize anybody online that would be representing him or me.
All right. We'll open it up for public discussion, if there's anyone who wants to be heard. All right, we'll take
I
it.
will note for the commission that I did not follow our usual enforcement guide here. I did not issue a formal notice of violation to the property owner, but I was on site with the property owner explaining that this was a violation and that we were going to put this on this conservation meeting, and I did CC him on my response to his landscaper stating that he was to have another site visit before the commission discussed it tonight.
Okay. All right, so as far as Matt's, I guess, guidance, recommendation, do we have any discussion?
Yeah, I think this property owner is fairly well versed in the requirements from the Conservation Commission, and has been scoffing at this law for these laws for quite some time, and has been claiming new gardeners for violations for some time. And so I would suggest that the commission remain poised to enforce this and poised to issue monetary penalties and keep this under really close surveillance going forward. I've been on the commission for some years now, and this has been a problem from the day I started here. So I don't think that we're having a lot of impact on Mr. Casnott by simply reminding him of his obligations under the conservation laws.
Yeah, I agree. Dot?
I definitely agree. It's most unfortunate.
All right, so,
And I,
sorry.
if a landscaper does make a mistake, it should be up to him to fix it.
You should be able to stop it beforehand since
Or,
the history
or
was
make sure they
property.
know.
Right.
Yeah, I like her word scoff.
I agree. As from where I sit, Mr. Kasner is a contractor who deals with outside construction. He has a subcontractor coming in and doing some work for him, essentially. Any contractor understands that their obligation to the contract is to control. I don't see that any different light than what we're looking at right here. He's failing to control his subcontractors, and we have to deal with this. The staff has to deal with it, and I think that we do have to maintain our poise in a stern way, right? It can't be ambiguous. Matt's recommendation was identify the directive and tie it to a fine for moving forward. I'm open to anybody's comments on that. I'm fine with that. I generally stay away from fines as the first salvo, but I certainly think you identify it so that moving forward, it's very clear that we identified the problem, we identified the corrective action, and we identified the fine structure that's going to go along with the non-compliance and any detriment effect to the wetlands. So from that perspective, I think, I feel that we're on the right track. The only other thing that I think I would just bring up for discussion is, looking through the pitches, is there's a fence going into the protected area, and people are going behind the fence because there's a gate. And why do we have a gate into an area that needs protection when we're seeing active non-protection? So from that perspective, Matt, I mean, I've never been on Mr. Kasner's land. Maybe I don't understand the layout, but the fence with the gate, what?
It's a gated-in pool area. You can access the gate from the vernal pool side of the property, where there's a thin lawn area that goes around the house.
Okay.
And then you can access from behind the driveway.
Okay, so he
And then
has,
there's a third gate that's strictly out behind, and it's behind the conservation posts that were installed.
Right.
And there's a pathway, and I think it's a pathway that they've used to access the rear of the property and maybe the cranberry bogs behind it.
That's my
But it is
concern,
being
is that-
used
that-
right now as somewhere where the landscapers will look and go, ooh, someplace to go dump stuff.
right.
And I believe there is still access to the rear of the property from the left side closest to the vernal pool by simply walking around the fence and going out that way instead of there. So I think it is something that could be done relatively easy, that could be another tool towards compliance, because at least what I'm told by Mr. Kasna, he doesn't want to continue doing this either. He's just maybe having a hard time getting there, and anything that we can do that gives them easy guidelines to follow is helpful.
So can we, I guess, what I would like to see is in the enforcement action or order that we're discussing, I would like the fence gate that goes into the vernal pool area addressed in that as well. And I'm open to discussion, but I would think that there's two ways to go. Either you require him to get rid of the gate 100%, and it's just taken care of moving forward with mechanical means that is easy enough to complete, or you require it to be locked in a way with a chain, and he's the one with the key, and if he doesn't hand it to his landscaper, nobody's getting back there. And if we go there on our visits, I hate leaving anything to a visit, then we can see that the gate was left unlatched.
Is there a way to do it without a lock, where it's like a metal band
I
that
would
locks that?
Way prefer a permanent solution versus something,
Locking
because
thing, yeah.
if, I get when the fence was put up, they were doing stuff. And if he wants to come into compliance, he still needs to kind of cut off his staff from circumventing what they don't necessarily have direct communication on. So I think that, anything that becomes a mechanical barrier to that fence gate opening, moving forward, it can be drilled with threaded rod and nuts, to make it fixed. I think that is the path that I would like Mr. Kasner to move forward, because if we take him on face value, and this was just somebody doing something they weren't supposed to do, Mr. Kasner can make it easier or harder for them to do it. And I would expect that would be a very agreeable path if we take everything at face value, so. And then the only other thing, and I'm not a landscaper, so I'm not gonna pretend that I know this one, is the timing of the spring cleanups. If we have the bulk of the activity at a certain time of year, do we want to discuss limiting, we've already limited that you can't use the backpack blowers, I think, in that area, right? And they said, oh, well, we raked it. Okay, well, maybe a certain time of year when they could do the most harm, we make that a gray area, and we say no action while those vernal pools are actually in their functional role of spawning the next generations of all those species.
In my version of it, there are conservation posts at the edge, and they can't do anything behind them. So they can go in to their little lawn area, and they can rake it, they can blow it,
Okay.
they can do whatever they want, as long as they're not doing anything behind those conservation posts. And what will happen is, like I said before, you're gonna have your turf, conservation posts along the edge. They're gonna be 2 foot high so that they can be seen.
Yep.
And he can prune anything that comes out past that over the lawn to keep it back, so he's not losing his lawn area. But you can't do anything in there and all of the leaves that fall every year out of the rhododendrons and the burning bush or whatever else is in there is going to fall on the ground and create leaf litter and create habitat. And then, when you go there for an occasional compliance check, you're just looking and seeing, is the leaf litter there? If it's there, great. If not, you don't have to try to determine whether somebody raked it, blew it down, blew it up, and then go down to the edge of the pool and see that there is a berm there, that somebody has done what they weren't supposed to do there. So I think that's an easy way to get compliance that really doesn't affect the property owner in a major way. They get to keep that essentially the way it is, and that's that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I'm perfectly satisfied with that answer from my question. Anyone else have anything from that?
Just one last thought on this is that being conservation commissioners, right, I've had, people say to me things about having a conservation commissioner report, and that it maybe, I live next to a conservation commissioner, so I'm at some sort of an unfair advantage. I think it's clear that conservation commissioners care about wetlands and wetlands wildlife and all of these things, and just because you're on the Conservation Commission doesn't mean that you have to turn a blind eye to your neighbor or somebody else in town that you see doing something that's a violation. I think if you have a conservation commissioner living next door to you, there shouldn't be an issue, provided that you're not having obvious violations of
It's kind of
wetlands
weird
issues.
to even think that.
It's just something I think that's worth being brought up, because I think it's really hard, for this particular commissioner to, deal with the fact that, she sees things and understands this is a certified vernal pool. There was active chorusing there this year, and she had to experience not hearing that chorusing again, and understanding that what likely happened there was a lot of them were using that area, and then they're not there anymore after that activity. So,
A little worse.
It's like the equivalent of Silent Spring, in a way.
yeah.
When it comes down to certain things, I think that, our function here as volunteers is that we're exposed to things that the general public are not. And I think that when we see something, we know something is on the opposite side of that line that the town people have put in place. We did not come up with any of these rules. These rules were put in place by town meeting. The people who represent us, who go and vote on these things, decided that this is the minimum standard that we want applied. And through our function as volunteers, we took an oath to make sure that we try to achieve that, or at least get as close to it as we can possibly defend. And I think we do a really good job on that. So when somebody says, hey, you're hard on me, we're not. We're trying to make sure that we're doing what we said we would do when we raised our hand to volunteer. So I don't have anything more on, kind of that allegation that it's a disadvantage, but, realistically speaking, we know a little bit more, a little bit less than some people, but generally speaking, when it comes to wetland stuff, I think we all know way more than the lay person, and, that comes with the territory, so. Certainly, I know a lot more now than I did when I came on, so, I don't know if that's a good thing, but,
I don't have the least problem
yeah.
telling the rest of the commission about something I've seen that I think should be addressed.
Yeah.
I mean, like you say, that's what we're here for.
If you see something, say something, right?
Right.
All right, Matt, so you need a vote on the enforcement
Sure.
order. All right. Do I hear a motion to issue the enforcement order mandating the submission of
Basically,
Sorry.
we're not even looking for a
Not
plan.
even.
It's pretty detailed how the posts would be installed.
Yep.
Every 30 feet between the edge of the turf and the landscape beds along the up slope of the vernal pool.
Are there no posts there now?
No,
Didn't we mandate those?
no. It's been discussed before several times, but it was never,
Are you
it
sure
was
they're
never
not on
mandated.
they're not supposed to be on the plan, like the as-built plan?
No,
I almost,
that's out back, not on the vernal pool side.
okay, are we gonna address the trees, the removal of the trees?
That's your That's your business.
I would suggest a fine for the removal of trees, because I had a clear conversation with Mr. Kasner on his property that we clearly, me, Matt, and Mr. Kasner, said he cannot remove trees back there. He pointed out this one, that one, that one, that one. We said you cannot remove those without coming to Matt. That was very clear. There should be no confusion on that. As well as everything else, but.
Is it
I would
your
suggest
feeling for, give me a little bit more detail on that?
I can be nice and do a $300 fine for both trees.
So 1 times
Like Kalina
300
said,
for tree removal.
This has been years and years. $300 fine we can include both trees.
Okay.
I think if we give him an enforcement order, he's gonna scoff and go, okay, like he's done, I think, probably 4 or 5 years now.
Would we have any objections? There's 4 of us here. Is that something we're all comfortable with, the one time? In addition to the enforcement actions with the discussion that we already have on that, are we all comfortable with a one-time $300 fine for the tree removals?
He certainly knows.
For the 2?
He shouldn't have done it.
I agree. All right, so I think just to simplify things, I'll make a motion to issue the enforcement orders as we discussed, and to include, with the language that we discussed about future fines for noncompliance with the enforcement order, and to issue a one-time $300 fine for the tree removals that was observed.
Did you include the gate in that too?
Well, that was in the discussion that I
Okay,
referenced.
sorry, you
Okay.
yeah.
No, you don't want to do a fine for the raking in the pool, near the pool.
My take is identify it, discuss it, give them the corrective action, and then
Okay.
tell them what happens moving forward. I think the trees are dead, they're gone now, so
Okay.
I feel a little bit different, but I think it's a little bit more defensible. If you guys disagree, I'm totally open, I'm not
No,
pushing.
it's kind of,
Yeah, okay, so, so that would be my motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All right, second by Dot. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. One, well, she recused, so no abstention. So that motion carries 4 to 0 to 0.
We didn't have a timeline, did we, to when those posts should be installed?
That is correct.
Oh,
Need a timeline.
I say 30 days.
Say again?
30 days.
30 days?
Yep.
it's amendment to the,
Amending my motion
Do
to
you hear a
include
friendly
30 days.
amendment to your motion
do.
for 30 days?
Can we do,
Second.
just to make it simple, can we do July 31st?
July
Great.
31st.
Okay.
yeah.
okay,
All right, so I accept that motion. The second was by Dot. Do you accept it?
yeah.
We'll revote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, all right. So, July 31st, for post. And then you'll have an enforcement order for us to sign next meeting?
Won't even have to.
Okay.
I just sign it and send it out, and you've already ratified it now.
All right, perfect. All right, we're gonna move on to 51 Main Street. Well, Matt, this is continued from an earlier date.
Yes, we've already gone through this, I think, ad nauseum, so I'm not going to go back and read any old information. June 2024 update. On June 8th, we received a wetland delineation memo written by Brad Holmes of ECR. At our last meeting, I had said I hadn't really had time to review it very well, but it appeared that some of the wetland had been filled there. I've since had time to go through and review all of that. Brad had done a site visit on May 28th. He identified 2 wetland areas on site, an IVW just past the developed portion of the property, which in that sense, it's not clear whether it would be jurisdictional to the state or simply for the local, so that's important. They have not confirmed that. And a BVW to the rear of the property that's not near any development on the property. That's a very linear, long property that goes up the back. Brad identified a section of altered IVW in the same approximate location as the turf expansion highlighted by myself from aerial imagery. And that appears to be a section of wetland that was converted to turf sometime in 2017 or 2018 per Google Earth imagery. The parking area was partly expanded around the same time and fully expanded to its current size in 2020 or 2021. Based on the delineation, there are a number of unpermitted jurisdictional alterations on the property, including replacing IVW with turf, likely including fill, replacing existing turf with gravel parking area, This area appears to have been maintained as lawn since at least the mid-1980s, possibly as early as 1971, according to blurry older aerial imagery. However, the addition of impervious surface and this parking area is likely impervious within the buffer zone would have required a permit. Removal of vegetation and construction of a fence between 51 and 53 Main Street in 2021 per Google Earth imagery. Is part of the reason for delineation. Only approximately 17 feet of that fence and vegetation removal is jurisdictional. The rest of it is outside of the buffer zone. The shed is partly within jurisdiction, does not appear to have been permitted by the commission, but it is, or something similar size to it in approximately the same place, is visible in aerial imagery since at least the mid-1980s or even before. It is within a legally developed section of the yard, so to me that wasn't really a concern. Similarly, the area of turf directly behind the house is partly within jurisdiction but has been maintained as an open yard for many decades. The fence, construction, and associated vegetation that was removed occurred later in 2021. The paved area between the turf and the gravel appears to have been constructed in the late 90s or early 2000s per aerial imagery around the time when the current owner, Stephen Buckus, purchased the property in 2001. Thus, it is unclear whether the commission could take action against the current owner for this parking area based on the statute of repose. For discussion, it's clear that there are violations of KWPR on this property due to unpermitted alterations of IBW and its associated 100-foot buffer zone. The commission should decide which, if any, unpermitted activities warrant enforcement action against the property owner. Replacement of wetland with turf likely cannot be permitted and will need to be restored, but the gravel parking area, fence, and vegetation removal are all within the buffer zone, so may be able to receive after-the-fact permitting. The commission may wish to issue an enforcement order mandating retrospective filing and wetland restoration. Property owner, and I can pull anything up on the screen if you guys want to see any of the analysis or wetland delineation or any of that. Property owner has been in saying that, you know, there was always lawn there, which I think, as I just got at, appears to be generally true depending on your definition of there. It does appear that there was lawn and then it sort of got pushed back as the pavement expanded and the unpermitted work occurred. They have worked with Brad Holmes of ECR on this, but I don't know if they're already working on a restoration plan or anything like that. So that's something that should be discussed.
Open up discussion to the commissioners. Any questions from Matt? Is there anyone from the public that would be like to be heard?
We just have the property owners here.
Okay. Ma'am, did you sign in? Okay, I did, just for the record, your name and address, please.
I'm Marlene McNamee, 51 Main Street. I met with Brad, and what he recommended, he flagged an area and recommended planting shrubs and allowing the vegetation to regrow back out over the lawn.
Okay.
He didn't mention what kind of shrubs or when we should plant them.
So what would typically happen with that is he would put together a restoration plan. And I think when you say plan, you know I'm not talking about a survey grade plan, but something similar to what he provided for the delineation. It could be as simple as providing a blown up version of that imagery where he details the area and specifies in the notes how you're dealing with it, how you're removing what's there, what you're planting in its place, how you're dealing with the surface, and going from there.
Yeah, is that what you're proposing to do? Is that
Yeah.
what you're bringing up? Okay.
And then I think typically what you would see with that also is some attempt at retrospective permitting for the rest of it. I think there's certain portions that the commission may or may not decide they don't particularly care about. I don't know. I mean, something where I talked about 17 feet of some vegetation removal and installation of turf and fence was within the buffer zone and the rest of it wasn't. Is that particularly concerning in an area that more or less has been developed for a long time, including on the other side of the fence from that? So I think in terms of retrospective permitting, you're talking about the gravel you know, the expansion of that parking area, and you're doing some restoration of that portion of BEW that was filled.
All right, comments on the, I guess, the anticipated path. I have no issues with a little retrospective permitting on things like this. If it was already pre-disturbed, it seems like a very straightforward path, and having a mitigation plan is satisfy my concerns, if everybody else agrees.
Agreed.
Sure.
And it's just a matter of how you want to deal with it, in the sense that earlier tonight, we had somebody who was already had a signed contract with ECR and is already working on a restoration plan. And we just gave them the time to do it. You can do the same thing right now with them, or you can issue an EO setting deadlines. It doesn't really particularly matter to me. This is an area that has been filled. So it will come back as functional wetland at some point soon, but we're not gonna get it tomorrow.
No.
So if it takes, and again, you're not having great success planting stuff in July and August, it's something more than likely that's gonna be planted in the fall. So if you wanna continue this again for a month and a half to allow them to work with somebody like Brad on putting that together, then that saves our administrative burden of drafting enforcement orders and having to update them, and it puts, I would say, less pressure on, you know, needing to meet specific deadlines when you're working with a contractor who's busy.
Right, and they're acting in good faith, so.
Yes.
Exactly. Would 8/12 be a good time to come back, give you enough time? Or?
No?
We'll be out of the area.
Okay.
So after
Later.
the 17th of August.
August 26th.
You'll be back the 17th?
Yeah.
All right, would you like the 26th of August?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to continue to give them time to work on the steps we've discussed to the August 26th meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. All right, that motion carries.
That
Thank
was
you.
the 26th, did you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah, August 26th.
Did you ever, like, I wasn't paying attention, did you announce that she came back out of the crowd?
We didn't announce it.
No.
Didn't announce, but it's video.
It just usually goes in the minutes that I returned.
Sorry.
She's got it. She's on top of everything. Oh my God. Always.
It's probably already done. I mean, she's very good. Very, very good. All right, looks like 19 Blair Drive, Matt. We
I'm
continue.
gonna run to my car and get myself dressed.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna run to my car and get myself dressed.
Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute brief recess.
Perfect.
All right, mic's back on, please. All right, Matt, 19 Blair Drive continued from an earlier day. Could you brief us?
I could.
Please do so.
I shall.
I'm excited to hear it.
I'm just trying to skip towards sort of where we last discussed this.
Get me away.
So there was a deadline for filing a restoration plan. Deadline was not technically met, but was met shortly thereafter, and we've had sufficient time since the last meeting to review it. Restoration plan prepared by Brad Holmes from ECR, popular guy tonight. Mr. Brogna explained that he's currently preparing an NOI submission for the property owner, Mr. Owen, to rebuild the failing seawall on the property and to regrade the site for future planned gardening with no impervious surface or structures. I advise that they wait to file the NOI until the commission reviews and approves the submitted restoration plan. Restoration plan uses appropriate species and methods, though it does not specify a monitoring and reporting regime. Excuse me. It specifies 3 years of hand pulling of non-native invasive species post-completion, which is good. The plan restores the area 30 feet landward of the existing top of coastal bank. While the cleared area extends much further landward than that, the 30-foot buffer is a no landscaping area per KWPR, and further filing is expected on the property. It is notable that the plan does not factor in land subject to coastal storm flowage or flood zone, which has the same setbacks as KWPR is currently written, including the 30-foot no landscaping buffer. In this case, the landward limit of land subject to coastal storm flowing appears to coincide with the 30-foot buffer to the top of coastal bank. The restoration plan uses the proposed conditions from an expected NOI filing rather than existing conditions. This makes the buffer zones used on the plan confusing, as the proposed conditions bring the top of coastal bank landward and also elevate it to 15.5 feet. The elevation may deal with the LSCSF issue, as the flood zone here, which is velocity zone, is listed as elevation 13, which is currently above the top of coastal bank. However, this puts the commission in a situation where the restoration is contingent on the issuance of OOCs for proposed work, which is not ideal, which sort of contradicts what I said earlier about not filing an NOI until we issue EO for the restoration. So, recommendations. Commission may choose to update the enforcement orders mandating the completion of the restoration planting work as shown on the proposed restoration plan to accompany site improvement plan. The commission should include monitoring and reporting by a wetland scientist for a minimum of 2 growing seasons following completion. It should be clarified that the EOs in no way permit the revetment work shown in the plan. That work requires orders of conditions. Alternately, the commission could require further information on how the restoration work may be performed without being contingent on site conditions changing through an NOI filing. While increasing the elevation and landward extent of the coastal bank through modifications or replacement of the existing revetment might be beneficial to the resource areas, it's not clear whether such work would meet the standards of 310 CMR 10 or KWPR, so having enforcement work be reliant on further permitting in this situation is not ideal. Further beyond that, and I think I shared this with Mr. Brogna before the meeting, but I didn't discuss that. I just have questions about whether a revetment project would be permittable here with KWPR and WPA based on it not protecting a structure existing prior to a set date. So I just expect that whenever we have that NOI, we'll have questions on that too. And that's what I got.
All right, we'll open it up for discussion. Mr. Brogna, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I'm Paul Brogna with Seacoast Engineering, Duxbury. I'm engineer representing Mr. Owen at 14 and 19 Blair Drive. Mr. Owen would like to apologize for his lack of permitting and lack of anticipation with the work that he hired local contractor to do back in the March timeframe. Unfortunately, it happened. I got the call on, I think it was April 15th, that the enforcement order had already been voted by the commission on April 8th and written on the 9th. And we did the best we could to support the 3 items that were required to be done. Upon inspecting the site, I say the old engineer in me looked at the stone wall at the low end of the lot. We looked at the whole portion of the lot. We've been working with Mr. Owen for the last 10 or 15 years and put the pier on his property under the regulations at the time back in the 2012, 2015 timeframe. We had never been involved with the vacant lot. It was a private lot at the time. Obviously, Webby Engineering was involved with it the last few years with the proposed construction of the house on the lot. Mr. Owen, as indicated in Mr. Pinella's report, bought the property last year. Mr. Owen spends most of the wintertime down south. The work was done in March, and Doug comes back and obviously faces the enforcement order and the work that has to get done here. As I said a minute ago, when we looked at the property, to do the mitigation work and the restoration work makes a lot of sense. We know what we would like to do, but from an engineering viewpoint, when you look at the 0.44 acres of land that is there, does it make sense to, let's just say, do more than just the mitigation work, more than just the restoration work? Because obviously, if you don't take care of the lowest portion of the lot and want to mitigate the upper portion, could something happen in the future that some of the work that you're doing could further erode or may not take hold and basically come back again? When you look at the land, I'm not sure if you've been out there, but when you look at the land itself, the topographic work that we have done, it's interesting that we have plenty of land to put the armored stone wall up. Looking at the flood zone, the FEMA flood zone that we have, velocity VE 13, that VE zone goes right into an X zone. There's no AO zone, there's no A zone. It's not like the typical, let's just say, normal resource area with the 100-foot buffer zone. In a way, it's nice because you're high and dry with the lot. What's unique about this property, and I can show you up close if you want, but if you look at the FEMA maps, you'll notice that that back line of the VE 13 kind of hugs good portion of the lot, because there is no structure there. Okay, when you look at Mr. Owens' other properties at 12 and 19, you'll see where the homes are basically.
You gotta keep the mic, or we have to get you a walking mic. Do you want me to pull it up on the screen?
Yeah,
I
can you
Yeah, if
put
could,
it,
please,
pull
sure,
up?
that'd be
Yeah, I'll
great.
do that.
Thank you. But what you see is that when you look at the FEMA line is right near the top of the old seawall on the properties. In other words, the homes that are there are old enough that they preceded the Wetlands Protection Act. So in a way, the top of the coastal bank, the top of the wall is really at the far east end of the property, and obviously they have the patio and the decks and everything else that's traditional with these sort of properties. Because we have a vacant lot in between, that FEMA flood zone line comes landward another 10 to 30 feet based on where you are on the lot, into the lot. So when you look at the velocity zone itself, a lot of that area has settled because the storm surge has come up and over the wall because it was never built properly and kind of eroded the low end of the lot, especially on the southeast corner, let's just say on the Plymouth side of the property.
So you're talking, and with the cursor up here, you can see the red point is the property, and coming across the flood zone goes up into the property this way. Because the property is right here. It's not cleared on this imagery yet.
And it continues that way, it looks through the the next 7 or 8 properties.
Yeah, it looks like it goes back down around where this structure is at 15 Blair Drive, and then comes back up again.
Nice.
Okay, so you can see where the red dot is on the map. That is basically the land in question tonight. To the north of it, to Mr. Owens's property at 14 Blair Drive, you can see where the line is more easterly with the velocity zone than it is with the vacant lot. And the same thing with his other house at 12 Blair Drive. Again, the western edge of the VE zone is towards the edge of the coastal bank. And The backyards on these two homes are obviously much more usable and palatable, if you will, because they were built prior to the existing Wetlands Protection Act and the Kingston bylaw itself. So when you look at why we designed, or Mr. Holmes designed his mitigation plan coming back towards the western edge of the velocity zone, that's where we have proposed the 30 feet of plantings, 15 feet of
Pull that up too.
So we have the 15 feet of the native plantings, Native American plantings, and 15 feet of the coastal salt tolerant material, shrubs, and seed mix itself. So what we've done is basically, we have to fill in that area, but that's the area that's the lowest portion of the lot that should be, and hopefully will be, above the armored wall for the future. But in order to have a 30-foot no-touch zone above this line, we're still filling this land to mitigate the work that had been done back a few months ago. So the dilemma that we're in is we have to basically rebuild that portion of the lot and fill it into a reasonable elevation so we can sustain the plantings for the mitigation plan. But master planning the entire lot, at least we would like to at least consider rebuilding the armored stone wall to today's standards. The homework that we did back in the May and early June timeframe, we see nothing in the regulations that would preclude us from building or reconstructing the armored wall that is basically grandfathered because of pre-existing the blizzard of '78 and when the regulations were adopted at that point in time. Granted, there is no lot here, there is no structure here on this property. I think the good thing we want to do is basically, there's no impervious surface that we're proposing here outside of the stones themselves, okay? Looking at the big picture, we have a lot of flexibility to rebuild the wall. Obviously, the VE zone, VE 13, today's day and age, with the lessons we've learned over the last 8 to 10 years with the storms we had back in 2018, a couple of storms earlier this year, the robustness, if you will, of the stone seawalls are a lot bigger and more involved than they were 10 or 15 years ago. So in essence, we usually go a couple feet higher than the flood zone. That's why we've designed it to elevation 15.0 as you see it on our plan. So by coming up an extra couple feet, we've flattened out the wall a little bit. Usually we build them 3-to-2 slope, 1.5 to 1. We're proposing this one as 2 to 1, so it brings it back a little bit and bring it up to 15. It will hopefully lessen the amount of filling to comply with the restoration plan that we're proposing. But again, I agree with Mr. Pinella's assessment here that, doing one separate from the other is the ideal way to go. The wall should be separate from the mitigation plan, but obviously the engineer in me says you got to take care of the lowest elevation first to make it work, build that foundation, and then work your way up from there. So that's why we kind of included into the plan for the initial discussion, whether it makes sense to conduct a site visit of the area. We'd be more than happy to take care of that with you if you want, or if there's anything else. We're just here to at least introduce ourselves, apologize for what was done back in March, and hopefully listen to the concerned direction of the commission so we can at least get closer to an agreed upon plan so we can take care of the work. And now that we're into the middle of the summertime, so to speak, or the early part of the summertime, is this the best time of the year to plant shrubs and bushes and everything else? Well, in some cases, yes, but you got to be careful as you get into the July and August timeframe. So with that, I'd be more than happy to address any questions or any other concerns that you may have at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll open it up for discussion for the commission. Are there any questions that we want to bring up for discussion? All right. We'll open up for any public that wants to be heard on the matter.
It looks like there was maybe something coming up.
Oh, it's open for everybody at this point.
To
Just
really get a handle on it, should we go and look at it, to really understand when you're seeing the low end and the east end and the this and the that, and and just see the topography of it.
I agree. I think ultimately there's, you know, I can hear what the,
Yeah, but you're looking at a piece of paper.
I think
the,
also, you know, getting information, we have no NOI filing yet. I told them they should hold off on the NOI filing, but getting some information about whether a revetment install or rebuild here would be permittable, would be good information to have as well. Because it's a chicken and the egg thing, right? You can't do this restoration plan without building that revetment wall. And if you did that restoration plan at the lower elevation, then it's at risk of being wiped out in the next storm. So it's not a viable restoration option, but you are held to needing work that needs orders of conditions to be done before enforcement-related restoration work can happen, which isn't ideal, particularly if it turns out that there is a permitting issue with rebuilding the revetment there or installing a new revetment there, however it would be called. I sent a quick email out to CZM last week on this just to try to get out ahead of like, hey, I know there's something about, they did sort of a prohibition on new revetments to protect, you know, unless the structure has been there predating.
and for the record, these lots haven't been combined, correct?
I'm sorry?
These lots have not been combined. Common ownership, they have not combined
I think
lots.
one of the older owners on Blair Drive held the property, maybe the lady across the cul-de-sac on the high side. That's what I was told. And then, obviously, Mary O'Donnell bought it a few years ago when Webby Engineering took care of their plan back in 19 and 20.
But for your client, he has not brought these under common deed.
Negative, nope.
I think a site visit would be a good idea with as many commissioners as could make it. You know, we could schedule it for later on a Tuesday, which seems to be a good time for a lot of people, like a 5 o'clock on a Tuesday kind of thing. And I think it makes sense for Mr. Brogna to start to get the information together, maybe as part of the enforcement issue, to get information to us about why or how what's being proposed for the revetment wall could be permitted.
Yeah, so just on that, I mean, my concern is that if we can't permit a wall because it's unpermittable, then we tie the two actions together too early, then we basically write an enforcement action for a mitigation plan that never gets built. And it's,
Right.
you know, kind of that loophole where it just doesn't get done. So I would be concerned with that. So I do think that's the appropriate path
And I
forward.
like the idea of tagging up with CZM.
We rely pretty heavily on them for this
Yeah.
type of stuff because I'm not a coastal expert by any means. And I know CZM is not a big fan of revetments, period. And that's part of why that language made it in there, was that I think at this point, they're not considered to be best practices, but they are something that can help protect an existing structure, so they still allow that in those situations. But I'm not sure that in this case, it may be that it's somehow grandfathered in there and it's fine to rebuild it. I just want confirmation of that before we go forward with anything else.
And they're
On that
looking at,
point, sorry.
and I know that they're always encouraging use of other materials other than stone.
Like a dune?
Like a dune. Well, pocket plantings and different
Usually
kinds
with
of.
oceanfront locations and a velocity zone that is there, let's just say the armored stone, not poured concrete, non-vertical is the preferred way to go. Obviously, you've seen portions of Plymouth and Duxbury the last 5 to 10 years where they're replacing the seawalls that I grew up with in Marshfield back many years ago, and it's all vertical concrete, but that is the best that you can do in these locations. Here, we have a lot more flexibility because there's no structure. I don't mind saying
Well,
that.
that's it. You're not
Usually we're
protecting
restricted with people's backyards, and you cannot go any closer to the water with the toe of the wall, but you can bring it back. Here, we can bring it back, really, whatever we want to bring it back, to be
Okay.
honest, so, yep.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, this is more of a neighborhood conversation as well. I mean, this is a nook, there's 100 houses there, if there's
Yeah.
one, right? So if you don't protect that, or continue to protect what was already protected, then, you know, it might not be a house on that site, structure on that site, but there's one
But you could affect the other two,
immediately
yeah.
adjacent to it, and bad things happen.
Right.
So from that perspective, I understand. And as far as a Tuesday, is there, do you want to just get back to us with dates, or?
Next
Unless-
Tuesday or a week from Tuesday?
Let me quickly look at, see if we can just schedule it now, and that'll
Yeah.
just be easier.
Also, I dropped off 4 pictures that I took this afternoon out there. One shows the lower third of the lot between silt sock in the middle of the lot and the hay bales at the lowest end of the lot. That's all grown in, and it's all kind of erosion proof at this point in time. It doesn't look pretty, but it's fairly grown in compared to the upper 2/3 of the lot. But again, with the rain we've had the last couple of days, but really at this time of the year, some of that stuff will grow in. Again, it's not pretty, but at least it kind of provides a little bit of resistance, you know, to the runoff and everything else. At the same time, I took a picture of another wall over on East Ave that has been there for a number of years, I was familiar with 5-10 years ago, and that's a representative of what we would like to do for this wall. It's a traditional armored stone. The toe stones go 4 to 5 feet below grade at this time of the year, and this is what some of the lessons we learned over the last 10 or 20 years. Instead of going 1 or 2 feet below, we go 4 to 5 feet now. Okay, we'd have a capstone at the top and maybe some crushed stone on top, so we'll kind of blend in, but be, let's just say, a 2026 vintage of the armored wall that will be around, should be around for many, many years to come. So, thank you.
Tuesday, the 30th, 5 PM, does that work for you?
Next Tuesday at 5, I believe it should, yeah.
What's the date next Tuesday?
30th.
That's
the
New
one.
Year's Eve.
Next Tuesday, the 30th.
That's New Year's Eve,
Yeah.
the end of the fiscal year.
Oh, right,
Oh,
right,
we'll have
right.
to go out, okay.
So Tuesday, the 30th at 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay.
All right,
Make sure
so,
you spend all the money in your budget, don't give it back.
so looking for a continuance.
Yeah, I
the
think,
following-
continue this to, I mean, you could do July 8th. How quickly do you think you could get information together on the revetment legality?
I'll try to get it for next Tuesday, sir.
Okay.
Okay, I got a couple of contacts at CZM or DEP, but let's just see what we come up with. Brad's been working independently. And let me just see what he knows at this point, and I'll do some more homework, but I'll get back to you before Tuesday at 5 with a quick update if I could. Thank you.
All right, so Matt,
Great.
continue to 7/8?
Yeah.
All right. Do I hear a motion to continue to July 8th?
I'll make the motion
By
to continue.
motion by Dot,
July.
Second.
second by Marilyn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstained? All right. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful night, sir.
Continue to sit through all this.
3 more. Are you doing a hard cutoff at any point? Or are you just gonna try to crank through?
Crank through.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, let's see what we do, and then let's take it case by case. 6 Prospect Street, continued from an earlier date. Matt, please bring us up to date in the most concise way possible.
Yes. We had several items from the last meeting. We have requirement from an EO to install an 8-foot chain link fence, which was supposed to be completed by yesterday. I have no evidence of compliance on that one. He is currently being fined daily for failure to comply with Action 3 of the EO, which was hiring a professional engineer. I am batching those in like bi-weekly, things like I said I would. The deadline for the fourth action of the EO, which was the 30% design plan, was June 18th, and I have no evidence on that either. Was there something on that that I missed? No, that was June. Yeah, I think we have the EO here. We can just quickly confirm that. Yeah, it was, Commission will discuss compliance with this action at their June 24th, 2026 meeting. Yeah, to provide that to the Conservation Department by June 18th to review tonight. That was unchanged from the May 28th enforcement order.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like last time, if I recall correctly, last meeting, we provided for a $300 fine per day for noncompliance with the original steps in the enforcement order. We put in a new stipulation for the fencing to be installed in a proper way, which was not done as far as we know. And they also missed the 30% design deadline, meaning that, have we heard from them? Are they here? Is there anything to be?
I don't see him online. I have heard from him, but not in terms of any compliance-related thing. And I think he has continued conversations with town council. One more thing that I don't think I brought up, I didn't bring it up at the last meeting because I didn't get it until June 11th. DCR's Office of Dam Safety had contracted a dam inspection report, and it was shared with me on June 11th. Within the report, the engineers detailed potential issues that were not present or mentioned in the last dam inspection report from 1998. The report found evidence of a septic system near the right abutment of the dam. I can bring a photo up if you'd like.
Please.
The only BOH or Board of Health file related to septic at this site is a septic installation permit application with no evidence of approval from 1974 when the property was still owned by Cobb and Drew and I believe was still an active factory site. The system looks much newer, is quite close to Foundry Pond and Smelt Brook. An unpermitted septic system this close to a pond, stream, and BVW would be very concerning from a wetlands protection standpoint. I reached out to Brian about that and asked if he had any information on that, and he didn't have anything in specifics, and he mentioned that at some point there was talk about connecting their property to a sewer, but that potentially it couldn't happen because they weren't the owners of the property, and he didn't have any more on that. But I'll pull the picture up just so that
Those are plastic
you have
green
it.
covers?
Yes, yeah, so it appears to be relatively new, which,
Plastic green covers, okay, yeah.
sorry, I hate the way that it shows all of the files in here. It makes it very difficult to find these things.
Matt, just for the discussion, that, the potential for there to be a septic that close to the dam seemed like it was pretty problematic from my review of the report. Am I misunderstanding that? Or, because, you know, when you're talking about dams and safety and, you know, whether or not they can come apart, and you're excavating next to it, you know, you're taking bank conditions out and you're putting back in with, you know, sand essentially.
Yeah, and, you know, whatever quantity of
Aside
liquid and all that
yeah.
kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that it was brought up in that report as concerning for the.
Aside for the non-permitting, it could impact the structural integrity of that area, correct?
Yeah, I think they didn't, it didn't go into any detail about how much of a concern it was, but it was brought up as a concerning thing that was not mentioned in the prior
Right.
inspection report.
Okay. Yeah, we're opening it up to discussion. We're gonna open it up to the public, and we're gonna open it up here. I think that ultimately, they've missed every deadline we've given. I think that the only thing we do, we don't even discuss it at this point. I'm open to discuss it as much as you want, but as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't need to be a discussion anymore. It's literally, okay, you missed this, here's another $300 fine per day. Come into compliance,
we'll figure the rest of it out, but essentially, it looks like if I was to put forth a motion, which I'm not at this point, my recommendation would be a $300 a day fine for the fencing not being done until it comes into compliance, a $300 per day
For the
fine
design.
for the missing design work that hasn't, as far as we know, hasn't even been started, or an engineer even come into contract with the owner or the occupant. And then the septic, I think, is the one that I'd have the question on. As far as I'm concerned, we have a septic system that appears to be installed in a way that, one, wasn't permitted, two, is well within a resource area. We have a history of them doing things on site themselves that is a reason why we're talking about this in the first place. At face value, I think I'm more than prepared to accept that they put in their own septic system adjacent to a dam that might have caused an issue. And so my take would be to give them another $300 fine per day on the septic, but I'm just not sure how I tie that into what the proper step is for the septic. So I don't know if it's, give them another 2 weeks.
We don't have a plan for that.
Right, I just don't know what the right direction is, but generally speaking, do you feel aligned with that, or do we want to have more discussion before we kind of just say, okay, we're good on the first few things and we need to figure out the last one?
Is it the health department that issues septic permits?
Board of
Septic
Health.
permits, but not, their septic permit is only about health, meaning that, like, okay, well, you're not that close to a well source or public drinking water. So the wetland side of it is ours.
Yeah.
And just because they're, like, if you're outside 100, the Title V and the laws say that we're gonna accept that as good enough, right? We're gonna say that that's in compliance and it's not a detriment to the resource areas. If you're not in compliance, then it becomes something. The dam safety part is something that, I don't even know if it's ours, like, as far as I'm concerned, but
Yeah.
we do know that it was a wetland issue, and that's what we're judging, and I think that it's very easy to say, you have, based on what we've already received, that they have a septic that shouldn't have been installed, that we may or may not have permitted, but
Not according to the.
not
laws.
according to the regulations, we wouldn't have. So I think that right there, I think we slap another fine on it and then compel some action that way. And I think that that's our only tools, and so I don't, but let's open that up for discussion and see if everybody,
This is so big now that I don't believe he's capable of taking care of it.
right,
What do you do when he can't?
yeah. But do we not put more fines on it because we don't think he can do anything, or do we just
I doubt
keep
if he
putting it
can-
on?
I doubt if he can even pay him.
I don't.
But that's
none
not
of-
anything
as far as I'm
that
concerned.
should stop us
I know.
from doing our responsible action.
Right, I think that this is the work of the job, right? It's not that we didn't ask for any of this to fall on our lap.
Right.
Certainly, we probably would prefer that it didn't, but are we all in agreement that it's just time to just more fines, and every time something else comes up, we'll discuss it a little bit, but there's only one path, and, we're not even seeing action at this point. So, do we want to debate
No,
that side of it, or do we want
I
to
don't
just
have
pile
any
on?
struggle with the fines, but Matt, where are you, I'm sure you can't get into specifics, but I'm feeling we need some legal advice here as to where do we have to go on this?
I think there's violations there that need to be dealt with, and you have a person who has essentially dominion over the property, and they're responsible for these violations. And I think that fines are used as a tool to get properties into compliance. And we also know that agreements can be made, fines can be waived when things come into compliance. That's up to the commission, right? You can fine somebody for not being in compliance, they can
Right.
come into compliance, and you can still not take the fines away if you feel strongly that they are warranted in that situation. But generally speaking, if somebody comes to you, before a magistrate hearing and has complied and says, well, are you willing to waive these? I think in a lot of situations, you're likely to.
Yeah, they finally make good on it, but,
I think the tricky thing here is with the septic, you have to set we don't know anything, right? All I know is that the Board of Health doesn't have any information on permitting on that property, and we don't have any information on permitting on that property, so there shouldn't be a septic system there.
correct.
We know that there was an addition built there in 2009 with no permits from any
Right.
department, and more than likely, the septic system was
Had
built
to do with that.
service
Yeah.
that. And the commission likely would not have allowed a septic system to go in there, and I'm not sure the Board of Health would have either, based on Title V. So I think it's definitely something the commission would want to deal with, and it's just a matter of how do you word it? Are you saying, that
Well, that's why I was curious about some legal advice, too.
I think issuing a $300 fine for unpermitted septic system and setting a deadline for like updating the EOs again to include that in it and to state that by a date certain, you need to either show how that was permitted or have it removed with proper permitting.
Yeah.
And then if that date isn't met, then you're issuing daily fines. You can just go the other route and issue daily fines right now for an unpermitted septic system until they deal with it, but it just doesn't seem as defensible as giving somebody a notice period.
Oh, sure.
You're fining them anyways for the unpermitted work and saying you have until set date to deal with this.
Well, let me ask, and I'm open, this is more for discussion purposes. 2009, unpermitted work. We don't even know anything about the wetland side of it. Board of Health has no understanding of it as well. We're literally looking at something that at this point is 16 years old, 17 years old. And it's likely been there since they decided that they weren't pulling permits for the building alterations. I think that this isn't something that happened last Tuesday and we have to, give them some notice because it's the right thing to do. At some point, we have to, I think, accept that there is zero compliance here and any kind of leeway probably shipped out after, the first or second violation and non-action. So from that perspective, I think you just go in with $300 a day fine for non-permitted, and they can come back, and if we're wrong, I'll make the motion to rescind, but at this point, we've seen zero compliance and zero effort towards compliance, and so I'm not in the mood to pretend that we need to go above and beyond on this one to, give them time to, they forgot that they needed to have a permit for a building and the associated septic system. So that would be my feeling on it. Does anybody disagree with that? And you're welcome to.
I think you're right.
I don't care how we do this, but
No, I understand. I guess what I was wondering is what vehicle is there to have an endpoint to where there's other legal action? I don't know.
I mean, there is.
They shut down debtors' prisons. They don't have those in there. That's what it's
No,
called.
but I mean-
I think at some point, I don't know, and maybe Matt can answer,
No, because I'm
but from
thinking
what I
about,
understand.
you talk about hazardous waste, there are interventions regarding hazardous waste. So here we have a septic system, water, dam. I'm trying to look at it, from a different angle and see if there's another, which might be out of our purview, but at least it's a
Well,
way to approach the
I think,
issue.
I think the tool, and maybe Colleen is way better at this than I am, but I think the tool is fines.
Oh, yeah.
And then at some point, it comes to as a board, we're voting to write a letter to the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, to engage legally to collect the outstanding fines and to compel action. And I think that ultimately that's the next
Okay.
step. But I don't know. So if you think I'm wrong, I'm just
Well,
I'm reading the tea
I
leaves.
think that the likelihood of actually getting any fines paid from him is nil.
Yeah.
And he may end up losing this property the same way he got it, by failure to pay taxes or whatever, real estate taxes. That's how his family got it, so he'll just rack up fines and eventually the town will take back.
Yeah, I
They'll
think
take it,
to,
won't
to
they?
get at what you were talking about
Yeah.
earlier, it's, citations are dealt with in the court. So
Mm-hmm.
you either appeal them or you don't, you either pay them or you don't pay them or you appeal them.
Right,
If you appeal them, you get your magistrate hearing.
you get your
If you
day.
don't pay them, then they end up sending eventually a criminal summons on it. So there is an end
Yeah.
goal for the things. They don't, if you don't act, there is a process that plays out. And the courts do check with us on these things where if there's an agreement or whatever, they're fine with dismissing things that's happened before on other ongoing conservation enforcement issues.
Just on that, I think it's disingenuous to discuss giving fines and talk about, well, we'll waive them later. I think.
No, we'll waive
Yeah.
them, but there is the potential for, like we always say, fines are a purpose for getting compliance, right? It doesn't mean the commission's gonna waive them,
Right.
but often if somebody gets in compliance and they come in and they've accumulated significant fines, they have every right to come in and ask and say,
Yeah.
listen, I'm in compliance now, will you please waive this?
Yeah.
And often I think the commission will make a decision in that situation, not always. So it's always up to the commission.
I don't want to put out, my preference would be to put out a face that says, hey, the line was way back there, you already crossed it.
Yeah.
And the fines are here, and they're real, we're assessing them daily at this point, and it's multiple fines per day because you're doing nothing.
Different thing.
Come in, it's not, well, maybe we can work a deal out, it's, no, that's the
Oh, no,
full
that's-
effort that we can do at this point,
You
and
don't
let the
forgive
town
fines
take care
at
of it.
this stage of the game.
Yeah.
Or you don't need to ever,
Right,
actually,
yeah.
but sometimes when you get to the
Yeah.
last day and you're in court, to end it, you can say, well, we'll,
Right. Egregious versus,
Right.
a tool to make sure people stay on the right side of the line. We're in two totally conversations.
as Matt said, it becomes a criminal matter
Right.
eventually.
Right.
Well, this is
Yeah.
it, and maybe that's where the answer.
All right. So, Matt, do you have guidance on the septic side? I think it sounds like that's the only thing I'm not really sure of. And my thought is daily fines for non-permitted septic installation. And then I don't know if you want more guidance on that, what he needs to do to get out of the $300 fines. I think just because you need to put the impetus behind the rock that's just not moving, I think you need to just say, this is open, it's gonna go on forever until you come back to us with a permitted project, and at that point, maybe we'll discuss removing that fine, but right now,
Right.
we're not gonna waste time giving them a path that I don't really feel that we're gonna see any path on anyways, so I think we just say moving forward, $300 a day
Yeah, I wouldn't
until
say,
the
if you're very
compliance is
good, we
coming.
might waive
No,
this,
no,
I
no,
wouldn't even
just-
go there.
No,
Just straight up.
straight up $300 fine until he comes into compliance with
Because
the
he's a
wetland
very nice
regulations.
boy, he just
Yeah.
really doesn't.
It's
have
not
any-
personal, I don't know him, and
He's a lovely boy.
I'm fine that everybody, I think everybody's good.
Equal opportunity finding.
I don't want to fine anybody.
Right.
Like, it's not what I'm here for. This case is something that was easily avoidable through non-action or non-offense commission by somebody else, right? And we're stuck here being the guy, or
Yeah.
the board that has to
We're,
say, here's your fine, there's your prize.
So, you're talking daily fines, daily $300 citations for the fence,
That's it.
daily $300 citations for failure to meet action item 4.
The design.
Deliverables, 30% design.
Yep.
And daily $300 fines for the septic system, unpermitted septic system.
In addition to the one that we
Until-
already put.
Until compliance with the state and local wetlands regulations is reached.
Yep.
Because that can be reached either through some retrospective permitting or permitting the removal and filling of the system.
Yeah, I don't
And
care.
I don't think we have to specify that.
Yeah,
I think
no.
it's
get it
A
in
blanket
compliance.
statement, get any compliance, right?
What I would probably do would be reissue the enforcement order specifying all of this and issue the citations with it.
But we're not changing the original one that we have in place, I want that to, that's already standalone. And-
Yeah,
and you can do it however you want, but
anything we
already voted
update
that way.
wouldn't change any other deadlines. What I did the most recent time I did this was on the one that specified getting an engineer under contract. I didn't change anything on that, and I wrote daily $300 fines are being issued for failure to comply with this action item. So I would change the other two to say the same exact thing, that still have the same dates, and I would add another one, saying that on this date, this was found to be the case, and daily $300 fines are being issued until the property is brought into compliance regarding this.
That's all we're looking for is compliance, so. All right, so that would be my, my motion to issue the 3 new $300 a day fines for as discussed.
Yeah.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Marilyn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? All right, hearing none, we will, that passes 5-0.
I agree.
All right, Matt, 41 East Avenue, please.
We had enforcement orders issued after the last meeting stating removal of stockpiles by yesterday and placing a row of hay bales landward of the silt sock by yesterday. We received photos yesterday in compliance with both of those now. The only thing that's not in compliance, and we didn't really get at this at the last meeting because I didn't realize it, and either something has changed or I just visually didn't see it, but the plan of record calls for silt sock, the typical 12-inch silt sock, and what was on site was straw wattle. So what they did initially was they went out and just added another straw wattle and had some other hay bales, and they said that's not the way that EO read. And so they ran back out and got hay bales and ran it across the way it should have been, but there's still not silt sock behind it. There's 2 straw wattles. So they are in compliance with what was required on the EO. I'm just bringing up that technically this was supposed to have a 12-inch silt sock. It doesn't have a 12-inch silt sock. I haven't been on site to really inspect how tight the hay bales are and whether that's sufficient to protect the site throughout construction. I suspect that silt sock would probably be advisable, also considering that's what's supposed to be there in the first place.
All right, so we're gonna open it up for discussion. Matt, is this something that we could dismiss and you could continue conversation? And, because I mean, if we already required the 12-inch,
Yeah, the 12-inch is already something that's in the plan of record. It's
Yeah.
not even something that the commission needs to
Right.
require. So I think you could close this. I don't know if who's on.
is there anyone from the public that would like to be heard on this issue? Please identify.
No. Okay. So we had an email earlier. I think it was from, is it Kevin? Yeah, Kevin Dolan, who was working on this. What I can do is I can email him tomorrow and just tell him the commission voted to put this enforcement issue to bed, but you have to get, the property in line with the plan of record by installing 12-inch silt sock, and I can tell them that they have until whenever time you tell me to get it done without being brought before the commission again for enforcement.
So what's today?
Month.
Wednesday?
I'd
Silt
say
sock?
2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Oh, I thought
What
it
do you
would be
think?
faster than that, but.
I don't know. I mean, it's they can probably
It's not
do it.
unprotected, that's why I said a month.
Yeah, it's not unprotected,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's
It's just not fully
Oh,
compliant.
okay, all right, that's good a month.
okay.
All right, do you need a vote or anything?
Sure. Why don't you vote to dismiss the enforcement issue?
All right, I'll make a motion to dismiss the 41 East Avenue and provide Matt with the guidance on 1 month for the corrective action on the 12-inch silts, what was it?
Silt sock.
Silt sock. Second.
Second by Marilyn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. All right, so that motion carries.
All right. And
All right, Matt, 44 Rabbit Road. Follow up on enforcement orders. Could you brief us?
Currently being fined daily for failure to comply with remedial action number 1, which was remove the wall and driveway after getting necessary permitting. Deadline for action item 2, which is remove or permit structures, is July 7th, 2026. They are in compliance with action item number 3, which was site cleanup and site visit. We did the site visit last week. Marilyn attended with me. And action 4 just summarizes the dock guidance. There's no action required at this time. I have talked with Jenna, property owner, about all of this. She has taken action since. She forwarded a proposal by Merrill it was clear that they had been to the site and saw everything, discussed everything. They had recommendations for how to go about the process of removing the wall and trying to permit the replacement of a tiered wall in its place. Jen is in the process. She said she reached out to 3 different structural engineers for quotes to work, on the NOI for that. And since has had a lot of questions about the different structures in the process, and she actually filed an NOI with DEP, which they didn't accept yet, but I reached out to her and said, they have to be filed with our office as well, and also that they're really in-depth. Most people do choose to have those contracted out. It's not a requirement. You can certainly do your own NOI filing, but we are really strict on what we accept as complete. And we've been kicking a lot of them back to engineers. So what she had filed was the accessory structures and the paved area. So I mentioned that the paved area was tied to the wall. There's nothing preventing her from including that in an NOI filing, but it technically is tied with the wall because the wall is supporting the pavement. So she has been working substantially on this, and she is here.
All right. Jenna, would you like to be heard?
I think Matt gave a great summary there. I don't have too much to add. I know I'm back on in about a week to give you all another update on the 7th or the 8th, whenever that meeting is. So I'm hoping that this forward progress is potentially enough for you all to consider pausing the daily fines as I kind of continue to move things forward.
All right, we'll open it up to discussion. Anyone in the public like to be heard? All right, commission, what's the thoughts?
Thoughts on
On on the enforcement orders and Matt's recommendations.
Yeah, I think you'd want to discuss whether you're willing to pause fines, and I think if you pause fines, you would do it for a set period of time. I don't think you'd pause indefinitely, but as of now, we issued fines. You told me to start issuing fines on June 11th. I issued a batch of fines out on, it would be for June 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th. I issued 4 days of fines already, and like I said, I'm batching them sort of bi-weekly. So if you decided to pause the fines, you would decide whether it was stopping as of what I issued on, the 16th, or whether we were pausing as of today or whatever. But you would set a deadline on that as well. That
Matt, I don't have it in front of me. Could you remind me what the fine structure was that we had? I believe we did a couple one-time fines and then a daily fine.
Yes, there were. It was a
What
$300 daily fine for the failure to remove the wall and the parking area, and then there was a single $300 fine for failure to comply with removal of the associated structures on the property, and a $300 single, I said single fine on that, right? Second one? Yes. And another single $300 fine for failure to comply with the general site conditions order and having a site visit to confirm that.
All right, and I believe you told us that the cleaning was documented.
Yeah, the cleaning, we did the site visit, the property appeared in compliance, so that part is now dealt with. The associated structures, she has worked on that and is in the process of trying to file a permit for that stuff, and has been working with me on sort of how that stuff works.
All right, and then Generally
And then the
speaking,
wall.
on the wall, I mean, some forward movement is exactly, the goal, right? But it wasn't just some forward movement, it was, to hit an end date. So it seems like pausing while there's forward progress, but I think we need to keep on a tight leash to
So
make
pause
sure
it
that-
for a certain period of time?
Yeah, so another milestone maybe, and give them some time to get there, but, I mean, I think we need to keep very controlled in this one.
I do not agree. We've gave them since January to get into compliance. And now we slap them with fines. They did a bunch of stuff, asked us to stop the fines, and if they're ahead of us, excuse me, I forget the date, they're in front of us again in July, then we can revisit this in July and want more progress. I don't agree with pausing fines because they've had since January to do all of this, and none of it was done.
All right. Other thoughts?
Well, my feeling about enforcing fines is to encourage action, and if the action's been encouraged and engaged in, then the purpose of fines is, you can't meet a purpose, it's done. So I guess it depends on what stage of compliance you've determined at this point.
Well, let me just play devil's advocate on both sides, right? There's been some action, but I don't see anything that's definitive. It's more of, there was some, if I'm misrelaying this or misremembering this, please let me know. I believe that there was some phone calls and there was some potential for engagement, but there hasn't been, I haven't heard that there's an engineer under contract and he has a deliverable date and all that stuff. So how much forward progress we've had is basically, I made some phone calls. Now that's good. I'm positive in my book. I'm glad to hear it. Ultimately, that's all I want is moving forward. But I don't know that they achieved anything that I consider substantial enough to pause fines, but I could go either way, just depending on what everybody else wants to do. So I don't have a strong feeling one way or another, but I don't want to overstate or understate what it is. I think, we see that there was some movement. That's great. I don't know how definitive that movement is at this point. Maybe that she comes back on the 8th and she has a signed contract and a date, and then I say, okay, great. That's exactly what we were looking for. So I could see that as the trigger point for me of feeling that they're on the compliance pathway.
May
Get some
I
evidence for it, so, yeah.
Yep.
add something?
Yes.
So I think what you could do, you already have them in front of you on July 8th for compliance with something else. If you felt there's been enough movement on this so far, you could pause the daily issuance of fines until July 8th to be discussed that night.
Right.
If at that point there's been more movement and you feel happy about that, you don't reinstate the fines. If there has been little movement and you feel like you need more push for compliance, then you reinstate the fines.
I think that's
It's
a
2
good-
weeks.
I think that's a logical
That's a
way to go.
good middle ground, yeah.
And at that point, you're also assessing whether they're in substantial compliance, or at least whether significant effort has been shown towards compliance with what's due on July 7th.
All right, so Matt's recommendation is to pause the fines until 7/8, at which point we'll decide to either reinstate or to dismiss the fines moving forward based on the results that we see. Generally speaking, are we, is the majority of them in compliance with that? You know what I meant. All right,
So
Matt, is there anything else we need to discuss on this one?
I don't believe so. Everything else is either, like, action 3 now is set. The site conditions we've confirmed are in compliance. I think it's worth mentioning that it was the commission's intention back then that the property would get into compliance and stay in compliance. So I think as of tonight, you're crossing off action item number 3, site cleanup and site visit, off of the list and considered to be in compliance now. But if you receive evidence that that's no longer in compliance, you are likely to issue fines for that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that we would want that built into
Yeah.
the update.
I think beyond that, there's nothing that is really needed. I don't even think we really need to issue anything legally to them about pausing fines. She's here tonight, she understands, you're saying fines are paused. When are they paused?
July.
Starting?
Oh,
When does the pause start? Does it start
Well, you
June
already
16th when I haven't issued those? Or are we pausing it starting today because
I thought today.
you said I was batching them?
I thought
Yeah,
today.
I think today would be my recommendation.
Or start, what was the date of that email she sent?
Oh, that was
What email? It was,
Within, I think, the
23rd.
last couple
I've got
days,
it.
probably.
I have Tuesday, the 23rd.
I think as a board, we should have maybe just a little bit of discussion, just so we apply this equally all the time, right? I don't really like retro, fines, like, and I said that last time. Also, I don't really want to retro pause things when, hey, look, we handed you this, we asked you to take care of it. There was a lot of steps that got us to the point where we started issuing the fines, you come back to us, and now we're talking about it for the first time, pausing the fine. So my general thought would be, today's the day you're talking about, today's the day that if we decide to pause them, we would pause them today, and we would just kind of apply that, because everybody's great people. I just don't want to treat somebody different
Right.
than somebody else, and I don't always remember everything, but you guys do. And-
That makes the most sense procedurally.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd be saying that you're pausing the fines starting today to be revisited at the July 8th
July
meeting.
8th, all right. Yeah,
Do I hear a motion to pause the fines as discussed on,
I'll make the
starting today?
yes, I will make the motion that we pause the fines starting today to be reassessed on July 8th. Is that all right?
Is that enough for you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion by Marilyn, I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
no,
And abstain. All right, so that motion passes 4 to 1 to 0. To suspend until the 8th, and then we'll discuss further.
Jenna, just for your understanding, that means you're going to get one more batch of fines for me going from, I believe, June 16th through yesterday.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
good luck.
See you in a few weeks.
I mean, in that regard.
Yeah, for sure,
All right.
oh, for sure. Do you want to do
Before
minutes,
we
or?
have
any other-
Meeting minutes, did everybody have time to review the meeting? No?
Do you want a motion to accept the March 25th meeting minutes?
Yes.
Okay, I move that
All
we
right, we
accept
have a
the
motion by
meeting
Marilyn. Do we
minutes
have a
of
second
March
by
25th.
Dot? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I'll abstain.
All right, so that motion carries 4 to 0 to 1 abstention on Megan. Matt, updates, you got 5 minutes, pal.
48 Pondview Drive, agent approved removal of a white pine that poses a strike risk to the house in the outer 100-foot buffer zone to wetland resource areas.
All right, any questions for Matt?
No.
Okay, perfect.
That is an administrative approval. Number 2, administrative approval, 17 Old Orchard Lane. The agent approved removal of a Norway maple tree that poses a strike risk to the neighboring house within the 100-foot buffer zone to coastal wetland resource areas.
Norway of maples are horrible.
They are horrible, they're invasive, but also on this one, I denied a request for removal of a red maple because that was in a wetland resource area, not adjacent to it, even though it does pose a strike risk to the structure. The applicant is trying to file an NOI for renovation, raise, rebuild, figured deal with it during the NOI.
Oh, yeah.
Any questions for Matt on 17 Old?
Is that a red maple or a red colored maple? Swamp maple?
Acer rubrum,
That's the swamp maple.
also called red maple.
Okay. Well, a lot of people mistake those big red maples, Norway maples.
Oh, the red leaf, the crimson crimson ones. They call them Crimson King,
Yeah,
the
something
purplish
like-
looking
yeah.
leaves. Yeah, yeah. No, it's one of the native red maple.
Okay.
It's,
All right, Matt, 3 minutes for update on ongoing projects.
signed contract on the MassDOT culvert grant for Lake Street.
Oh, yeah.
So that's good. Wrapping up 3 different projects that are grant funded. One of them is the Bates Pond Trail, which isn't directly tied to a state grant. The other is the stormwater project on Drew and Seaver. There's an NOI filing coming in on that any day. And the third one is the bid prep for Lake Street culvert under the DER grant. On top of that, the Mass Ready Act environmental bond bill was just passed through the House. The rodenticide bill did not make it into the final cut. So we still have a group of people locally that are working on that sort of stuff, and we probably should push more towards municipal action since, you know, there's been a lot of action and progress on the state level, but it is time to push a little more locally. What did make it into the environmental bond bill, and it was partially, I think, thanks to JRWA pushing, and also partially just Representative Lenatra and her staff being excellent and advocating for us always. It's not fully funded yet, but they were able to get earmarks into the environmental bond bill for $1 million towards Maple Street Dam and Culvert. So that's really excellent if the funding can come through on that, and $100,000 towards the purchase of the DOT parcel that we've been trying to buy for 4 years.
Oh, my goodness.
From DOT along Camp Econ.
Wow.
Rep. Lenatra's office has been really helpful with trying to help us navigate working with DOT on trying to get something done here, but we've been stuck on our appraisal being significantly lower than theirs or than their asking price. And I think this money would help us deal with that. Again, assuming that the funding comes through. I need to talk to their office about how that works. The whole state system, I don't quite get it, but it's excellent news regardless, and really good work from their office in advocating for wetlands and ecology in Kingston. That's
Nice.
the last thing I got for you.
All right, you got 30 seconds to spare. Very serious stuff. Does anyone actually have questions for Matt? I'm not rushing us.
No, and I would like to go on the record applauding Representative Lenatra,
Yeah.
who never fails to support the important things, the things that are important to the town of Kingston.
Yes.
Here, here.
Very good. All right, so if there's no other discussion, the next meeting will be held on July 8th, 2026, starting at 6:30 PM. The time is now 10 o'clock. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Yes. A motion from Marilyn, second by Megan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, that motion carries. We are adjourned.
Did you want to do a hard cutoff at 10 o'clock?
Yeah.